Immortal Cultivation begins with time management. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyright or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 426. Witches' Thoughts. Senior Sister's Vow. After Wei Dongliu entered the temple, the two groups of monks were confronting each other outside. In fact, their minds had already flown to the temple. The blue-robed monks were worried that this demon king would brazenly attack Uncle Mingjing. The red-robed monks were worried that the demon Buddha would suddenly pass away inside and the relics would be taken away by this demon king. So although everyone was facing each other, they would glance inside from time to time, and their hearts were also anxious. When the demon Buddha's loud laughter came from inside, the monks were even more confused. Then, the laughter stopped abruptly. At this time, some red-robed monks could not hold back and wanted to force their way into Puji Temple, but they did not dare to move because the angry Li Thong did not give the order. When Wei Dongliu and others came out of the temple, these monks could no longer bear it and immediately became noisy. Wei Dongliu had a cold face and swept his eyes over everyone, obviously not intending to speak. When I was fighting alone before, I had to do everything myself. Now that I have the Aksha, I can just pretend to be a big shot and brush up mysteries. Sure enough, Fishin Yaksha hurried forward and sneered, "My master is doing things, why do you ball donkeys have to interfere?" It was wrapped tightly in a black robe, so that no one could recognize its identity as Fishin Yaksha. Li Thong couldn't help but get angry and said angrily, "You're so arrogant, but I don't know if your strength is as stubborn as your words." Although he was strong and muscular, his steps were light and agile. Obviously, he used some kind of footwork. Suddenly, he came in front of Fishin Yaksha and punched it in the face. With a flash of golden light, Li Thong's fist stopped a few inches in front of Fishin Yaksha, but he couldn't hit it at all. Because a fat gold and silkworm with hundreds of poisons was riding on Li Thong's face, holding his big face tightly with several pairs of claws, and the fangs in its mouth were also clattering. Li Thong was so frightened that cold sweat broke out all over his body like a flood dam opened, and his expression became stiff and pale. Fishin Yaksha breathed a sigh of relief. It was not that it could not fight back, but it was worried that if it was besieged, it would have to kill people, causing the breath to leak out of the seal and trigger a heavenly calamity. Now that Wei Mojin took the initiative to help it out, Fishin Yaksha became more courageous and laughed. "Then do you think I am strong?" Li Thong was hugged by the golden silkworm with hundreds of poisons, and he definitely couldn't say hard words, otherwise the insect would bite him directly and he would be dead. But he couldn't give in. If he gave in, the angry Vetter would lose his dignity and it would be difficult for him to lead the disciples of the Shudo Foundation establishment realm in the future. Therefore, Li Thong just gritted his teeth and stared at the gold and silkworm with hundreds of poisons. "Get lost," Wei Dongliu said briefly, and put the poisonous gold and silkworm into his sleeve. Li Thong retreated as if he had been pardoned. Gilai in the back row raised his eyelids and glanced at him, and soon closed his eyes and became calm again. This time, no one dared to step forward to stop him. Wei Dongliu took Jianglin and Fishin Yaksha and swaggered out of Puji Temple and returned to Shipping Mountain. After watching Wei Dongliu return to the stone house, Jiangmonu secretly breathed a sigh of relief. To be honest, although she felt so guilty and self-blamed at the time that she had to cry to defend herself, her mind changed subtly after Wei Dongliu expressed his forgiveness. "What did I do wrong? I did nothing wrong. If a man does not work for himself, he will be punished by heaven and earth. If I did not give up Wei Mojin at the time, my master would have broken his neck and killed me. Then I could only tell the truth. As for the hysteria later, it was naturally to save her life. After she confessed in front of the master let her go, but the betrayed Wei Mojin might not be so magnanimous. In addition, the flying night demon deliberately humiliated and provoked her, and the master had already hated her. If she could not hold on to Wei Mojin's thighs, after a while, the master would find that she basically had no contact with Wei Mojin, and would definitely kill her. Therefore, it was the most important thing to let Wei Dongliu forgive her for her words. First, cry and whine to make him soften his heart, and then flatter him to change his mind. Now it seems that the matter has been settled for 80% and the Demon King does not seem to care about it anymore, but whether there is still a grudge in his heart. "Come on." Jianglin called Yuojin and Bangjun to his side, and said with a smile, "Have you finished the last pill? Let me see how your cultivation progresses." Wei Dongliu went back to the house and took out the rib to look at it. There was no clue. "Jin, scan it." Wait, Liu said lightly. This is just an ordinary bone. Kunlun Mirror quickly gave a conclusion. So I was deceived by the demon Buddha. Wait, Liu frowned and muttered to himself, throwing the bone on the table. It turned out that this time, he didn't get any news from Baiyujing, and the clues about the hell were also false information. In addition to training Fishin Yaksha into a slave and being contradicted by Jian Glean, he didn't get anything more. It's outrageous. Wait, Liu sighed and said, let's go to Baiyujing for the competition. Which route do you plan to take first? Kunlun Mirror asked curiously. Lingpoon. Before he could answer, King Ping Sword said first, it's my turn to show my skills. Didn't you call yourself the Emperor of Swords? Wait, Liu teased it. Before, you forced Lei Jian to call you His Majesty. Why do you call yourself an aunt now? Sword Master, how dare my sword call itself an emperor? King Ping Sword said with a smile. Seeing it being so flattering, Wei Dongliu was in a good mood and said, then let's start with Ling Yunpo, and see what the Baiyujing competition is like. Kunlun Mirror was too lazy to complain and started to use his magical powers directly. Point 2. Shushan Shang King Sect, King Luo Peak. Character Identity. Ling Yunpo. Mirror Flower Water Moon Template Overwritten, traveling through time and space. Ling Yunpo has been practicing swordsmanship with Nzisu these days. His two-handed sword controlling skills are already proficient, and with the third sword of his external incarnation, the tactical advantage brought by it is almost invincible. Senior Sisterin could originally resist with the art of advancing and retreating, but later Ling Yunpo used the art of all-out attack and no defenser. After she talked a lot about it, she no longer sharpened the sword with Ling Yunpo, fearing that this junior brother would lose his temper and choose a radical style of play again. The two fought against each other, and Nzisu won less and lost more, but looking at the smile on her face, she seemed happier than if she had won. As the day of the Baiyujing competition approached, Nzisu didn't drink much wine, but just concentrated on honing his swordsmanship, and the murderous aura between his brows became deeper and deeper. This time, I must defeat all the strong enemies and take the first place in Baiyujing to present to the master. Of course, if my junior brother also makes rapid progress, I will give him the first place, and it is also good to take the second place. Recently, when discussing Buddhism, sometimes the days are long and sometimes short. Sometimes it is 2.2k, 2.4k, and sometimes it is only 2k. When I have a great enlightenment, my writing skills will definitely reach a higher level. Chapter 427. Unyielding character Ling Yun possessed. The Shushan swordsman had been looking forward to it day and night, and finally, in their eager anticipation, the day of the Baiyujing competition arrived. When the time came, all the peaks held a swearing-in ceremony, and then thousands of sword lights shot up into the sky, like brilliant clouds, all heading east. Since King Luo Peak had no master, there was no swearing-in ceremony, and no speeches from the peak master. Nzisu just went to get a pot of wine and poured a glass for herself and junior brother Lim. After drinking the wine, senior Sisterin threw the cup and pointed her finger, and the Theon sword popped out from behind, instantly shattering the cup. Let's go, junior brother, she said heroically. Ling Yunpo nodded, and followed senior sister on the sword, flying in the direction of the Shushan army. At a glance, there were about 2,000 to 3,000 Shushan disciples in the foundation building stage, slightly more than the disciples at Kunlin. However, it seemed that most of the disciples were not very strong. Compared to the casual cultivators, they are naturally very powerful, but from Ling Yunpo's perspective, they are all mediocre. The ones I really want to deal with are only the top 5 or 6 people from each sect. When I arrived at the Baiyujing secret realm, I saw that the area near Tianmu Mountain was full of orthodox disciples, flying around with sword lights. The one wearing a white robe and a high crown is a Kunling cultivator, the one wearing a green robe and carrying a sword is a Shushan sword fairy, and the one wearing a brocade dress is a Penglai disciple, very easy to recognize. They had not been walking around for long when they saw a green sword light flying over. It was Baishan, who was ranked 7th on the immortal sword list. She said to her senior sister and brother, disciples of Shushan, follow me. I will take you to where you'll stay. Senior sister Baishan, Ling Yunpo asked with a smile, why do we have to stay at the hotel? What are the rules of the Baiyujing competition? There are almost 8,000 disciples in the foundation establishment stage from each sect, Baishan replied. In order to save time, the competition adopts a single elimination system. Everyone draws lots to determine their opponents. The losers will be eliminated and the winners will advance. When there are fewer than 12 people left in the qualifying arena, we will start competing and determine the specific rankings. In the Bayujing secret realm, there are only about 1,000 battles a day, so the competition is estimated to take at least half a month. So each sect has set up an area in Tianmu Mountain for everyone to stay and rest, so that they can maintain their strength after the competition. I see. Thank you, senior sister, for clearing up my doubts. Ling Yunpo said with a smile. You're welcome. Bashan just said politely, but Nzisu frowned slightly, as if she was unhappy. What's wrong with this senior sister Anne? Why did she seem a little hostile just now? Was it my illusion? Bashan continued to observe for a while, and seeing that Nzisu's face was normal, she first took the two to the resting place assigned to Shushan, on an open mountaintop. The draw will be held at 3:30 p.m. every day, and the location is at the entrance of the Bayujing secret realm, which is below the rock in the distance. Nzisu and Ling Yunpo naturally knew it. After all, it was they who discovered the secret realm in the first place. The following are all temporary huts built by the faction. You can find uninhabited ones by yourself. After explaining some matters, Bashan tactfully said goodbye and left. Nzisu chose a house, turned around and saw Ling Yunpo lingering around, so he asked curiously, Junior brother, why don't you go to choose a room? I live with my senior sister. Ling Yunpo said with a shameless face. How can this be done? Although Nzisu was shy, she subconsciously put on the majesty of a senior sister and said seriously, be good, go and choose an empty house nearby, closer to you, and I will accompany you to practice sword every day, okay? Okay. Ling Yunpo didn't expect to convince the senior sister with just a few words, so he pushed the door and left. Nzisu looked at the room, then pinched her fingers and released a few spells to clean the surroundings. Although she was a sword fairy who specialized in swordsmanship, she still knew some simple Taoist spells. After about an hour, Ling Yunpo came back and said with a wry smile, Senior sister, the houses around have been chosen. Chosen? Nzisu asked in surprise. She went out and took a look, and found that the three nearest thatched cottages were occupied by Lin Juanzhen, Juanfenhai and Yuanchenu. Seeing that senior sister and junior brother Ling both chose this place, I want to choose a closer one so that we can communicate more on weekdays. Lin Juanzhen just came out of the house and said with a smile. Nzisu, I don't mind if you live closer, but can you leave a place for my junior brother? In the past, the outspoken senior sister would have frowned and complained directly. Thanks to Ling Yunpo's continuous disdainful teaching day after day, she must improve her emotional intelligence and not offend people by speaking without thinking. Therefore, Nzisu could only hold back, with a stern face and not saying a word. Ling Yunpo watched from the side and breathed a sigh of relief. Although the senior sister was almost infinitely tolerant of him, if she really questioned Lin Juanzhen just now, and senior brother Lin subconsciously explained that it was she who invited him to live here, then her little thoughts would be seen through by the senior sister in an instant. Fortunately, the senior sister did not ask more questions now. The three nearest thatched cottages were occupied by Lin, Juan, and Guan, and their junior brothers and sisters also lived around. At this time, if Ling Yunpo wanted to find a place to live, he could only find an extremely remote place. I think the senior sister was determined not to give up. Nzisu accompanied Ling Yunpo for a walk and found that there were indeed no empty rooms around. She could only hold her forehead and said, okay, then junior brother, stay in my room for the time being. Thinking carefully, although they were sharing a room, it was not so inconvenient. After all, practitioners did not need to eat, nor did they need to excrete, nor would they sweat or get dusty, so there was no need to change clothes, and there would be no embarrassing or awkward situations for junior brother to avoid. The only problem was that if it got out, it might be bad for a woman's reputation. However, Nzisu's personality was the same as Su Jian's, and she was a person who did her own thing. Even if she would care more about other people's faces, she would not be honored as the mowing sword fairy, so she did not care too much about these. What is there to slander about the pure friendship between us, the senior sister and the junior brother? After returning to the room with junior brother Lin Yunpo, she found a place on the wooden bed and sat cross-legged to meditate and breathe. Originally, there was no breathing and refining in Nzisu's schedule. It was probably because Su Jian was in seclusion, and the waterfall level refining technique she got was incomplete, so she couldn't breathe and warm the purple palace. However, last time in the secret realm of Bayujing, Ling Yunpo got the complete Sang Sunday and Moon Hunyuan Sutra, which enabled Nzisu not only to breathe and refine ki, but also to refine the Taoist true essence more powerful and the Jade Palace more perfect. Therefore, Nzisu practiced extra diligently. Ling Yunpo looked at the wooden bed and found that the senior sister had reserved a place for him. But he didn't rush to get on the bed, but admired the face of the senior sister who was close at hand with interest. Although Nzisu was born in Guangling County, Yangzhou, and was a gentlewoman from the Jiangnan water town, she was not gentle in appearance or temperament. She was the typical type of soft but strong. Because of her extremely protective personality, she was usually gentle to her junior brother, but once Ling Yunpo approached the bottom line, she would subconsciously become tough. Fortunately, Ling Yunpo has roughly determined the bottom line of senior sister and through persistent testing. For example, when they are together, holding hands is fine, hugging is also fine, but kissing is close to the bottom line, and senior sister will directly push away, and then use Her Majesty to teach him a lesson. Therefore, what I have to do is to keep hovering near the bottom line, let her gradually get used to it, and slowly give in. From how can we live together, to there is no other way, we can live together temporarily, and finally there is no problem living together. This is Ling Yunpo's ultimate goal. What is unyielding personality? The so-called unyielding is to move forward towards the goal without stopping. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Mundo Fanfic Novelers, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelers. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 428. Senior Sisterin is very unhappy. At noon, Ling Yunpo followed Sisterin to the entrance of Baiyuzhang Secret Realm to draw lots. He originally thought that it would be like queuing for nucleic acid, taking turns to get the lottery number from the lottery box, but when he arrived, he found that there were so many people. How long would it take to queue up? Fortunately, the three orthodox sects were not stupid enough to really set up the lottery like this. As soon as the third quarter of noon arrived, thousands of rays of light suddenly burst out from below and shot in all directions. A stream of light shot to Ling Yunpo's side, and he was quick to grab it. Looking closely, it turned out to be a small jade sword with 317 engraved on it. In other words, the opponent is a cultivator who got 318, Ling Yunpo thought to himself. Turning around to look at Sister Ram's lottery sword, it was 110, a very auspicious number. At this time, the competition had already begun. The stone gate at the entrance of Baiyuzhang Secret Realm opened with a bang. Several high-level cultivators were near the entrance, constantly charging the stone gate with some kind of thunder magic weapon to maintain the continuous opening of the secret realm. Many monks entered the Baiyuzhang Secret Realm in groups. Considering that the secret realm can accommodate up to 1,000 battles a day, most of these monks should not go to compete, but to watch the battle. Shall we go in too? Ling Yunpo invited. Okay. Nzisu smiled softly. The two followed the crowd and just entered the Baiyuzhang Secret Realm. They immediately heard a huge cheering way from the front. As expected of Chief Kyu. That sword is simply wonderful. Chief Kyu was invincible. Nzisu frowned when he heard it, and Ling Yunpo's face changed. It was only the first game, how could I be blown up? I saw that near the pavilion in the distance, the crowd slowly parted to both sides. A Kunlun disciple with a red face stepped out of the pavilion gate and kept clasping his fists to the crowd on the left and right and said, "This is my first game. I am fortunate to fight against Chief Kyu and experience his wonderful moves. I am really defeated. I'm ashamed." He said ashamed, but it was obvious from his expression that he was showing off, as if he was the winner. Looking at the Kunlun disciples in the crowd, everyone was envious, as if it was an honor to fight with the Chief Kyu. It was outrageous. "Brother Yin, please tell us the secret of the sword that the Chief Kyu just used." Soon, more than 10 Kunlun disciples came out and pulled Brother Yin, who was defeated by Kyu Chang Tian, to the side, and the crowd slowly dispersed. Pretentious. Nzisu said with disgust, but thought in her heart, are all the Kunlun disciples without ambition? Even when the master won consecutive battles in Shushan, he did not get such a high reputation. Instead, everyone was dissatisfied and slandered him behind his back. How come Kyu Chang Tian, who took the same path, can get so much admiration and worship from his fellow disciples? Ling Yunpo guessed her thoughts and couldn't help laughing secretly. Kyu Chang Tian, and your father Su Jian, are not on the same path at all. Su Jian became famous in various challenges in Shushan after the disappearance of his brother Doizhenren. The immortal Chanmei was worried about the whereabouts of Taoist Master Doi, and had no energy to care about him. In addition, Su Jian didn't know how to socialize at all. He would beat up his opponents, didn't know how to say polite words, and would break people's flying swords at will. No matter how strong he was, who would dare to get close to him rashly? Qiu Chang's Iron was different. His earliest reputation was built in the circle of outer disciples. He had the name of Qiu Da Chief, who was eager to do good for others, which gave people a positive first impression. Not to mention that he was a person with a clear mind and a bright future. Everyone wanted to make friends with him in advance, and he responded politely one by one, making people feel like spring breeze, and they didn't feel alienated at all. In addition, with the endorsement of Ziwei Master behind him, even if they were jealous of him in their hearts, they could only pretend to be friendly on the surface. After all these, the collective atmosphere of everyone loves Qiu Chang's Iron was naturally formed, right? The so-called collective atmosphere is the evaluation of a person by the collective consciousness, and this thing is contagious. Su Jian killed someone in a sword fight and made an enemy. The existence of the enemy made Su Jian's reputation in Shushan worse, some more enemies came to fight with him, and his reputation became worse and worse. Qiu Chang's Iron took the outer disciples to practice and make friends. Friends helped Qiu Chang's Iron brag about him in the Kunlun circle, some more friends came to make friends, and his reputation became better and better. Do you understand? Senior sister Am, you should pay more attention. Zisu naturally didn't know what junior brother Ling was thinking. She just felt that not to mention the master, even her own junior brother was thousands of times better than Qiu Da Sayabao, but no one appreciated him. She couldn't help but be more displeased with Qiu Chang's Iron, thinking that if she ran into him, she would definitely teach him a lesson. Although the junior brother had explained that he couldn't easily cut someone's natal sword, Qiu Chang's Iron was a cunning cultivator and didn't know the natal sword practice method. It shouldn't matter if he cut his sword, and it could also vent the anger for the junior brother. Well, let's do it. Ling Yunpo didn't know what senior sister was thinking, but he knew that Qiu Chang's Iron's number must be very high. Maybe it was the Ziwei sect leader who cheated to let the Kunling Grand Chief win. The two of them wandered around the Baiyusheng secret realm, thinking about it, and suddenly saw the sword in Zisu's hand light up, and it flew out of her hand and flew away. Senior sister, it's your turn. Ling Yunpo reminded hurriedly. Okay. Zisu was angry, and immediately summoned a Feian sword, turning into a red stream of light, and couldn't wait to chase after the sword. Ling Yunpo hurriedly followed, and the two of them followed the small sword on their swords and flew directly to the 9th pavilion in Baiyusheng. They saw the sword sank into the plaque on the pavilion and then disappeared. The pavilions near the 9th pavilion, as well as the long corridors and the air beside it, were already full of cultivators. When they saw Zisu flying here, the Shushan disciples in the crowd recognized the appearance of the grass-chopping sword Immortal and were shocked. They immediately shot out streams of light and called for fellow disciples from other peaks to come and see. You know, the grass-chopping sword Immortal from Shushan always treats our fellow disciples from Shushan as grass to be cut. This time in that Baiyusheng competition, we're finally going out to bully the other two sects and let them know how powerful the Shushan sword Immortal is. Zisu and Ling Yunpo stepped into the 9th pavilion, and many cultivators immediately followed them and rushed in to watch the first battle of the grass-chopping sword Immortal. Most of them were Shushan disciples, and their faces were full of excitement, and they couldn't wait for the grass-chopping sword Immortal to kill and bleed. Of course, there were also some Kunlun and Penglai disciples who didn't know the name of the grass-chopping sword Immortal, but when they saw the Shushan people move at the news, they couldn't help but become a little curious. Ling Yunpo passed through the entrance of the gatehouse and saw that the pavilion was still the same as the last time he came in. It was countless times more spacious than it looked from the outside. It was obviously widened by some kind of space secret method. In the center was a wide and barrier-free fighting venue, and there were stairs around it leading to the 2nd and 3rd floors. Each floor was a narrow corridor about 10 feet wide, which was surrounded by the edge and hollowed out in the middle and surrounded by railings, so that spectators could stand on the upper floors and watch the battle below. Senior Sister Am's opponent had arrived in advance and was standing in the center of the venue. He was a cunning cultivator, Ling Yunpo knew this person. He was actually a direct disciple of Kunlun Master Chuanxin, senior brother Fei Wanzifa. His killer move was the Tai King Chuan Men Invisible Sword Key, which was secretly passed down by Master Chuanxin's lineage. He was also considered one of Kunlun's most elite disciples. Zisu also stepped into the venue, and the rest of the people followed the stairs on the edge of the pavilion to the upper-level viewing corridor to make room for the two fighting cultivators on the 1st floor. Suddenly, a female voice was heard from the building. The flag hunts the sky wind, summoning the true energy of the 5 directions. The sword crosses the Big Dipper, clearing the evil spirits of 1,000 miles. Trialists, do you want to start the fight? Come on. Zisu just pulled out the Feian sword, and Fa Yuanzi suddenly raised his hand. Wait, Chapter 429. Tai King Chuan Men Invisible Sword Key. What's wrong? Zisu was furious, her eyebrows were raised, and she said impatiently, "Let's wait for my junior brothers and sisters to come and watch the fight." Fa Yuanzi said proudly. Ling Yunpa was speechless. This senior brother Fa's behavior was obviously imitating Qiu Cheng Tian. When he was playing Qiu Cheng Tian, Fa Yuanzi was quite familiar with him, and they were very polite during the conversation. I didn't expect that he was actually my fan in private, wow. However, even if you want to become famous, you must be sure to defeat senior sister Am. The first ones who came to watch the fight were all Shushan disciples, and gradually more Kunlun disciples came. I think they also received the news and came to watch senior brother Fa show off his skills. Ling Yunpo even saw Zhu Yinyan. This junior sister's Yu quietly went up to the 4th floor from the opposite staircase, found an empty corner, and looked over the railing to the venue below. Finally, seeing that all his junior brothers and sisters had arrived here, Fa Ziyuan thought that it was finally time for him to show his skills, so he pretended to stretch his muscles and laughed. "Sorry for the long wait, let's get started." Zisu had been waiting impatiently for a long time. Hearing this, he drew out the Feian and Hanlian swords and performed the Fenun Bagura step. With a flick of his footsteps, he suddenly approached several feet. Before Fa Yuanzi could react, he saw Zisu's figure flicker again, and he had already rushed in front of him, and the Feian sword chopped him off. There were exclamations from the outside, probably because when fighting against the Shushan sword Immortal, everyone assumed that you would use the flying sword to cut, so they would stare at your flying sword at the beginning, either using the flying sword to block it, or using magic weapons to defend it. But Zisu used footwork, which was too retro for everyone, so that everyone had the illusion of dreaming back to the ancient body refining era. The audience was just amazed, but Fa Yuanzi, who was in the field, secretly complained, because the explosive power of this step in an instant was much faster than the speed of the flying sword, so that his eyes could not keep up at all. He had to use his right hand to control the flying sword to resist, but his left hand secretly bent his 5 fingers and flicked them quickly. Tai King Chuan Men Invisible Sword Energy. This secret technique can be sent and received as if by the heart, and the fingers can be used as if by the arms. The attack power is similar to that of ordinary flying swords, but it is colorless and invisible, silent and breathless, and even the consciousness cannot detect it. Unless there is a magic weapon with a full range of 360 degrees to protect the body, there is no way to resist it. It is a secret sneak attack. No, it should be said that it is an excellent secret method to target flaws. Under Fa Yuanzi's control, the invisible sword energy made a detour and attacked from behind Zisu. Zisu saw his 10 fingers flicking in the corner of his eye, as if he was flying a sword, and suddenly his heart was shocked. The cold sword immediately went around to the back, and it was actually across the path that the invisible sword energy must pass. Fa Yuanzi was horrified, but he didn't have time to stop, so the invisible sword energy collided with the cold sword, and it was instantly destroyed. Then, the Feian sword chopped down again. This time, Fa Yuanzi's reaction was half a beat slower, because he was still controlling the invisible sword energy half a beat ago. Seeing that it was too late to pull back the flying sword to defend again, Fa Yuanzi could only grit his teeth and quickly activate the magic weapon on his body. A talisman was activated from his waist, and immediately formed an invisible wall in the air, blocking the attack of the Feian sword. At the same time, Fa Yuanzi's hands shook wildly, as if he was plucking invisible strings. At that moment, he had sent out 20 invisible sword energies, attacking Zisu from 20 different directions. Even if you are lucky enough to block one just now, you can't be lucky enough to block 20 this time. Ling Yunpa was anxious watching from the sidelines, and almost blurted out, "Release the Taoist magic." He knew the tricky part of the Tai King Chuan Men Invisible Sword Energy. If there were only 3 or 5, he could still block them by spinning his flying sword, in short. The rapid random blocking method, but as long as there were more than 10, it would be impossible to defend against them. If Qiu Cheng time came over, if you dared to flick your finger, I would kill you first with the fastest Qiandu thunder. But Sister Am's attack was blocked by the magic weapon, allowing the invisible sword energy to be unleashed. At this time, she could only bombard with the sword's Taoism on a large scale. No. Ling Yunpo suddenly reacted again. At this time, Zisu was too close to Fa Yuanzi and the distance was too short. Before the sword's Taoism could be activated, the invisible sword energy was about to poke her forehead. Just as he was worried, he saw Zisu react again. She did not activate the sword's Taoism. Just as Ling Yunpo realized it later, at such a close distance, the sword energy was faster than the Taoism. She just shot the cold sword into the air, and the flying smoke sword circled around her. She swung them like a storm. Although it seemed to hit the air, it made a crisp sound like breaking glass. Blocked. Many Shushan disciples on the high-level stands around did not understand what happened, but those with experience had already seen that the Kunlun monk used some kind of invisible sword energy. And all these sword energies were blocked by the grass-cutting sword Immortal. Judging from the frequency of the sound, there were no less than 20. How did he do it? Ling Yunpo's breathing also stagnated for a while, and there were incredible thoughts circling in his mind. It's a natural sword heart. In his mind, Kingping's sword sighed, the real natural sword heart, hasn't a natural sword heart awakened a long time ago? Kunlun Mira said strangely. Yes, but she just couldn't bear to use it on her favorite junior brother. Kingping's sword said faintly, Master Sword Master, watch carefully. That is the real power of the natural sword heart. Zisu waved her arms again, and the Feon sword and the Hanli sword, one red and one blue, intertwined into a net. No matter how far Yuanzi shot out the invisible sword energy, it was shattered and destroyed under this airtight sword net. It was as if she could see the invisible sword energy of Tai King Chuan men. Fa Yuanzi took a half step back, and some incredible emotions surged in his mind, but he didn't have much time left. Since the invisible sword energy could not achieve the concealment effect, then the sneak attack, then the ability to target the flaws has also failed. Of course, Fa Yuanzi still has a trump card, which is for the battle for the 12 seats in Beijing. If it is exposed too early, it will only be targeted by the opponents behind, but it's impossible to be eliminated in the first game. He took a deep breath and felt that the true energy in his danton was all agitated. They spun violently in the sea of ki, and then burst out from the meridians of the limbs and bones, turning into countless invisible sword ki, bombarding the front. The invisible sword art is a very simple name, but as its literal meaning says, when the number of invisible sword ki increases to tens of thousands, any pure swordsmanship response loses its meaning, because this is a Taoist attack. And the Taoist attack can only be countered by the Taoist of the same level. This is precisely the advantage of cunning cultivators and the weakness of Shushan sword immortals, because there is a significant difference in the true energy capacity of both sides. As soon as this thought passed through Fa Yuanzi's mind, he was immediately blocked by a bright and violent red light, which completely blocked his vision. Chapter 430. They are all old acquaintances. Invisible 10,000 swords technique, nearly 10,000 invisible sword ki erupted. Even though the spectators around could not catch the outline of the sword ki, the danger and murderous intent that was almost coming towards them still made everyone's scalp numb. Ling Yunpo's heart tightened when he saw it. He naturally knew the power of the invisible 10,000 swords technique. When ordinary cultivators were alarmed by the murderous intent, using defensive magic weapons was a subconscious reaction. But this was actually a trap, because no matter how powerful the magic weapon was, its defensive strength was not enough to block nearly 10,000 sword ki. Once the magic weapon was broken, it would be too late to change tactics. The correct way is to attack with attack. For example, if Qiu Chang's iron was here, he could use Chi Thunder to break it. Chi Thunder has a very wide range. Whether you have 10,000 or 100 million invisible sword ki, they will all be blown away by a divine thunder. But Senior Sister does not have such a large-scale Taoist method. She threw the Feon sword, and the sword light and her body instantly overlapped. Then the sword light surged several feet and shot straight towards Fa Yuan at a rapid speed. The unity of body and sword. As the ultimate move of the Shushan sword immortal, the unity of body and sword is to combine the body with the sword, thereby greatly improving the strength, speed and lethality of the flying sword. Of course, since this mood consumes too much true energy, it can only be used as a killer. And Nzisu's choice was just right, just stuck at the moment when the invisible 10,000 swords were activated, which was the moment when Fa Yuanzi was most proud. When he suddenly came to his senses from his self-confidence, Nzisu's sword light had already pierced through his chest. So time seemed to stop suddenly. When Fa Yuanzi came to his senses, he saw that there was no wound on his chest, only a faint pain, just like when he first entered the Beijing secret realm. Ling Yunpo was defeated by the sword spirit through his chest, and he was actually not hurt. Everyone only heard another voice ringing in their ears again, but it was not the original female voice in the Beijing secret realm, but another unfamiliar weapon spirit voice. The winner is Shushan, Zisu. Ling Yunpo breathed a sigh of relief. Oh, you are worthy at being my senior sister. The Shushan disciples around also cheered. The first one. The first foreign disciple to be cut by the sword fairy. The hardships we have suffered for so many years have finally taught you how powerful we are. In contrast, the faces of the Kunlun disciples were a little ugly, especially the junior brothers and sisters who were called by Fa Yuanzin. Their faces looked as if they were about to cry. Master, it's bad. Senior brother Fa was eliminated in the first round. Zisu snorted, without any pride, and said nothing, just turned around and walked out of the field. Ling Yunpo hurried downstairs and greeted his senior sister with a smile. Congratulations on your victory. The opponent is quite powerful. Facing the compliment of his junior brother, Zisu was very modest and said with a smile, the invisible sword energy at that man is very powerful. If you are not careful, you will be hit. You must be careful when you meet him in the future. In the future? Ling Yunpo laughed. He was eliminated by my senior sister, so where is the future? Well, even if it is not in the big competition, there will be opportunities to meet him in the future. Zisu was a little embarrassed, but still defended. The two talked and laughed, facing the awe-inspiring eyes of the surrounding Shushan disciples, and left the 9th pavilion. As soon as they went out, they saw Shiluli and Luoyang just pressing down the sword light and landing on the surrounding platforms. Why are there so many people here? Mishi asked curiously. I heard the 2 high-level disciples from Shushan and Kunlun are fighting inside. Luoyang replied. Oh? Shiluli asked suspiciously, Junior brother, you have been with me all the time, how do you know that it is the disciples of Shushan and Kunlun fighting? Look. Luoyang smiled and pointed to the main door of the pavilion, looking at the attire of the monks who came out to watch the battle. Most of them are from Kunlun and Shushan, and the least are from Penglai. It can't just be because the monks from Kunlun and Shushan were fighting inside just now. And since everyone has come out now, it means that the battle is over. Senior sister, look. Shiluli looked up and saw another sword shot from a distance, directly into the plug on the upper floor. Obviously, the new double battle has been scheduled in this 9th pavilion. Shiluli was obviously a little unhappy that his junior brother's observation ability was better than his. Turning around and seeing Zisu and Ling Yunpo passing by, Mishi suddenly exclaimed. Hey, junior brother. She stared at Ling Yunpo's back and suddenly shouted, have I seen that person before? Ling Yunpo didn't know about it, but just flew away with Zisu. Let's go to Tianmu Mountain outside. Ling Yunpo said with a smile. Junior brother, your number is 317. Senior sister was thoughtful. I think it will be your turn soon. Why not wait until you finish the competition today before leaving? That's right. Ling Yunpo nodded. About half an hour later, the sword in Ling Yunpo's hand really reacted, and it shot out and flew straight forward. The two of them hurriedly flew to catch up with the sword, only to see the sword descend again and fall into the plug of the first pavilion. Junior brother, it's your turn. Zisu said with a smile, obviously very confident in the strength of her junior brother. Senior sister, you can warm a glass of wine and come back to drink it after I win. Ling Yunpo joked. Okay. Senior sister really poured 2 glasses of wine, placed them flat on the sword of Feon's sword, and began to heat them. Ling Yunpo. Okay, don't drink secretly while I'm away. Stepping into the first pavilion, Ling Yunpo saw another old acquaintance standing across the venue. Weilin, a disciple of the Divine Pill Pavilion of Yu King Temple. Oops. Ling Yunpo sighed inwardly, but he sighed for Luoyang and Yu King Temple. You must know that unlike Kunlun Shushan, where almost all the Foundation establishment disciples came out, the attitude of the disciples of Penglai Yu King Temple towards the Baiyuzheng competition was very cold, so much so that they could not even fill the first round of registrations, and the top leaders had to force them to make up the number of people. Since they were forced to recruit men, the enthusiasm of these disciples to fight can be imagined, and it is unknown whether they can last for several rounds in the competition. There are only 7 people who were really expected by the head of Khuandu, but now one person is missing in advance. But think about it carefully, Sister Bailin's fighting ability is indeed not strong. Even if she didn't meet me, Ling Yunpo, she would still end up losing if she met Qiu Cheng Tian, Zhu Yinlian, and Zisu later. I defeated her early, which was equivalent to helping her take a holiday early, so she didn't have to worry about the subsequent competitions. In this sense, she should thank me. Thinking of this, Ling Yunpo clasped his fists leisurely. Weilin had obviously done her homework in advance, and recognized that the person who entered the field was Po Yunjian Xian, who ranked second on the Shushan Xianjian ranking, and her face immediately became ugly. Seeing that the other party clasped his fists and saluted, she guessed that he would most likely show mercy and would not let her lose too badly, so Weilin was relieved again and bowed slightly in return. In the next second, Ling Yunpo summoned the Kingpin, Li Xin, and Wangzhu swords, and opened a fierce battle line in the air, which frightened her so much that she almost flew away. I know the Shushan signature two-handed sword control technique, but what the hell is this three-sword control technique? Chapter 431. Warm wine and killed by Lin. But a quarter of an hour ago, in another pavilion in Baiyujing, Julanfan Hegai defeated his fellow disciple from Shushan and got the promotion quota. Just after the game, Yuan Chenu came down from the stairs of the stands and greeted him. "What's your draw number?" Julanfan Hegai asked casually. 3, 7, 4, 9. Yuan Chenu replied, "The first battle will probably be scheduled for the day after tomorrow." Trouble. Julanfan Hegai shook his head and sneered, "With so many contestants, most of them have no chance of advancing, so why bother to squeeze into this Baiyujing? Of course, it's to gain experience." Yuan Chenu said leisurely. "How do you gain experience?" Julanfan Hegai asked back. "Going to the battlefield and being beaten until you cry for your parents, is that considered gaining experience?" Yuan Chenu smiled but said nothing. Seeing Lin Yulanzhen coming down from nearby with a sword light, he asked him, "Lin Yulanzhen, did you watch the battle of the Great Chief Qiu?" "I did." Lin Yulanzhen shook his head. "The gap in strength between them is too big, I couldn't tell." "It should be so." Julanfan Hegai was not surprised. In addition, the sword used by Qiu Changtai seems to be the Tianyuan Yeki sword. Lin Yulanzhen dropped another bombshell. "Tianyuan Yeki sword?" Julanfan Hegai frowned and said, "If I remember correctly, this sword was once owned by a powerful Wu clan. Later, it was lost with the decline of the Wu clan. How did it fall into Kunlun's hands?" Qiu Changtai used the Tianyuan Yeki sword, and with just one sword, he shook the flying sword at the Kunlun disciple opposite. His overwhelming power was really amazing. Lin Yulanzhen said seriously, "I even suspect that even if senior sister was here, she might not be able to confront Qiu Changtai head-on." "But Nzisu might not confront Qiu Changtai head-on," Yuan Chenu just said a sentence, and suddenly asked in surprise, "Hey, isn't that Nzisu?" Everyone looked up and saw Ling Yunpo and Nzisu chasing the sword. "Let's go and see," Lin Yulanzhen suggested. Whether it was Ling Yunpo or Nzisu's fight, it was naturally worth seeing. So everyone agreed, and they all drove the sword light to chase. As a result, they followed into the first pavilion and saw Ling Yunpo entering the field and saluted to Yuking Temple Billion. Junior brother Lin is very polite and has the demeanor of a Shushan swordsman. Lin Yulanzhen praised. He is much more tactful than his sister. Yuan Chenu added. Julanfan Hegai couldn't agree more. When Ling Yunpo suddenly summoned three swords, the three of them were all surprised. Controlling three swords at the same time. Lin Yulanzhen said in a lost voice, "An external incarnation. Or three using one mind?" "It should be three using one mind." Julanfan Hegai said immediately, "Just look, the Thunder Sword and the new wooden flying sword can never operate smoothly at the same time. When the former moves, the latter stops, and when the latter moves, the former stops." "I see." Lin Yulanzhen also breathed a sigh of relief. "I thought he had used the kindling divine pearl bestowed by the Yuan family's ancestor last time to refine that external incarnation. Compared to materials, the secret method of refining an external incarnation is even more rare." Julanfan Hegai turned his head and asked, "Senior Sister Yuan, has Ling Yunpo ever asked your Yuan family for the secret method of refining?" "I haven't heard of it." Yuan Chenu shook her head, "But ever since the last time the Sun Sword Master offered such an outrageous condition, the ancestor has given up the idea of looking for the Sunday and Moon twin swords, and junior brother Ling has never come to my Yuan family since then." "That's it." Julanfan Hegai nodded and said, "However, with junior brother Ling's talent, using one mind and three uses to disguise as an outer incarnation, it would be difficult for ordinary cultivators to tell, right? Look at the opponent of Yu King Temple, isn't he trembling now?" Lin Yulanzhen also looked over, and saw that Bai Lin was almost showing a bitter face. He quickly waved his sleeves and took out a few pills and put them into his mouth. Although Lin Yunpo already had an outer incarnation, he did not release the kindling divine pearl this time. He just used one mind and three uses to control the three swords in order to mislead the surrounding spectators and hide his true trump card. In this way, when he needs to use the outer incarnation, he will come out with the three swords, and the opponent will not realize the danger in a short time. Since he wants to mislead the people around him, he is not in a hurry to defeat Bai Lin, let alone use the big move of body and sword integration. Ling Yunpo just stood still with grace and did not take advantage of the opponent to attack while taking the medicine. After Bai Lin took the pill, her face immediately became red. Then, she pulled out the hairpin from behind her hair and pointed it at Ling Yunpo. Ling Yunpo exclaimed, and suddenly performed the dividing cloud 8 diagram step, and disappeared in a flash. Everyone looked at the place where he was originally standing. There was already a small pit on the ground, which was pierced by some unknown attack from the hairpin. That's it? Ling Yunpo was slightly stunned. It was not as powerful as the invisible sword energy of Tai King Chuan Men that he saw on the stage. Weilin also had a blank expression on her face, and she complained in her heart. Whether it was Taoism or refining technique, Yuking Temple was not as rich as Kunlun Shushan, but there was no shortage of all kinds of strange magic weapons. For example, this jade sword hairpin, as long as the true essence was input into it, it could stimulate the sword energy. The more true essence, the stronger the sword energy. With the help of the power of the elixir, she stimulated the true essence to the extreme, and the stimulated sword energy was so strong that it could even directly repel ordinary flying swords. But it was not enough to face the second-ranked sword Immortal Poon on the Shushan Immortal Sword ranking. The sword energy could not hit the opponent at all, so it was meaningless no matter how strong the force was. Thinking of this, Weilin took out a handful of golden pills from her sleeve and threw them on the ground around her. Every time a golden pill fell, an 8-foot-tall brass puppet stood up instantly. It looked like a rhinoceros or an elephant, and its spirit was like a bull fighting bull. Holding a weapon, it rushed towards Ling Yunpo from all around. Oh, the art of throwing beans to make soldiers. Ling Yunpo was also surprised. His figure flashed again, and he flashed through the gap between the two brass puppets. The Kingping sword and the Li Zi sword shot out and pierced the brass puppet from behind. Weilin's face was bitter. The materials used for her puppets were all top grade, but they were like paper paste under the opponent's flying sword, and had no defense or power. It can be seen that the opponent must have a 10th level fairy sword in his hand. The fighting skills were not as good as others, and the magic weapons had no advantages. How could he win? Ling Yunpo used the sword formula again, letting the Kingping sword and the Li Zi sword continue to strangle the surrounding puppets, while the Wanzhou sword stabbed at Billion's body, but was blocked by the opponent with a small green sword. The Wanzhou sword only slashed a few times, and Billion finally couldn't hold on. Her face turned pale due to the sword light, and she finally shouted, "Okay, I lost. I lost." Looking at the brass puppets on the field, Ling Yunpo had chopped them down to only 3, which made her feel so distressed that tears welled up in her eyes. Although Ling Yunpo's character is unyielding, he can't bear to see the girl cry, so he bowed and turned around to leave. As a result, he saw Shilili running in from outside the field, hugging the still-sat Billion to comfort her, and throwing him a vicious look. Ling Yunpo. Oh, he suddenly remembered that Mishi and Billion were both members of the chief fan club of Qiu, and they must have a good relationship in private. I guess I will be hated this time. Zisu hates Qiu Chang Tian, Shilili hates Ling Yunpo. What kind of messed up relationship is this? If their identities are exposed one day, won't they be so angry that they will kill me? It seems that Luo Yan has to avoid Zhu Ying or Yan in the future. Ling Yunpo didn't dare to stay for long, and hurriedly left the pavilion. When he went out, he saw Senior Sister standing by the wide jade railing, and Fei'an's sword came up with a wine glass. "Junior brother, you have worked hard," Senior Sister said with a smile. "It can't be said to be hard." Ling Yunpo shook his head, raised the glass and drank it all. The wine was clear and still hot. But this Fei'an sword is always heated, isn't it normal to have heat? Chapter 432. Who returns? In the next few days, since it was not their turn to fight, Ling Yunpo and Zisu wandered around Tianmu Mountain and enjoyed the scenery. Apart from the battles between the 5 or 6 top masters of the 3 sects of Kunlun, Shushan and Penglai, the battles between the other cultivators were really not interesting. Lin Julanzan and Juan Fan Hegai, because they were single, wandered around the Weiyusheng secret realm, looking for battles between famous cultivators. As for Yuan Jinyu, no one knew where she had gone, and she could not be found anywhere. That afternoon, Zisu accompanied Ling Yunpo to fish by a lake near Tianmu Mountain. Ling Yunpo prepared the fish food in advance, and scattered the bait near the lake to attract the fish, and then started fishing. Zisu sat next to him, warming the wine in front of a small stove, and occasionally adding fire to it with the Fei'an sword. Seeing the big crucian carp being caught one after another, Ling Yunpo was overjoyed. He threw all of them into the wooden barrel beside Senior Sister An's skirt and kept them with water. "Junior brother Ling." A voice suddenly came from behind. Ling Yunpo turned around and saw that it was Sima Chang'an, the 6th on the Immortal Sword list. It has been a long time since they parted in the Giant Tree secret realm. However, senior sister did not like Sima Changyan either. She felt that he was obsessed with making connections and managing power, which delayed his own cultivation. Therefore, she often warned Ling Yunpo not to associate with him. Behind Sima Changyan, there were two more people, a man and a woman, both of whom were acquaintances. The man was thin and pale, but he was the #1 swordsmith in Tiangong workshop. He had reached the perfection of the Wei level of the Golden Core realm. He was the eldest senior brother Ling Yushu. The woman had delicate features and was cute and lovely. If she was not Miss Shi, who else could she be? Junior brother Lin, senior sister Anne, let me introduce you to. Sima Changyan introduced, these two are Taoist friends from the Tiangong workshop of Yu King Temple, Master Henjiqiu and Shi. I have heard of your great names for a long time. Ling Yunpo said with a salute. Henjiqiu was the Taoist name of Ling Yushu after he formed the elixir, but it is more casual in the Tiangong workshop, and everyone is used to calling him senior brother Ling Yu. Master Henjiqiu. Zisu was silent for a moment. I met him at the Yuan Family Sword Tomb conference last time. Excuse me, I didn't expect that Feian Sword Immortal would remember my name. Ling Yushu smiled and said, Junior sister Shi and I came here this time to make friends with the two Taoist friends and exchange swordsmanship. Although it was exchanging swordsmanship, Ling Yunpo was so familiar with this senior brother that he immediately guessed that he loved swordsmanship and wanted to come and see the Kingping Sword, Feian Sword and other 10th level flying swords. But why did Mishi follow? And why didn't my future self, Luo Yan, come? Oh, if Luo Yan came, he would just be reciting lines. When I play Luo Yan in the future, I have to recite the lines again. It is better not to come. Exchange swordsmanship. Zisu finally showed some interest. Okay, let's find a place nearby to compete. Ling Yushu's face froze. What is there for me, a Jintan's Hinran, to compete with you, a disciple of the Foundation Establishment realm? Can you block my sword attack? Ahem. Ling Yunpo hurriedly tried to smooth things over. I dare not, Henjiqiu's Hinran is a senior. How can we talk about being equals? This also reminded Zisu that Jindan's Hinran said that he wanted to exchange swordsmanship with you, just to lower his posture and express friendship. He did not want you to really climb up. So senior sister was a little embarrassed. Just as she was about to speak, she heard Shilili burst into laughter and said, Big brother, this Taoist friend is really interesting. Is it true that he knows nothing except swordsmanship? Hey, Mishi, you don't have much experience, okay? Ling Yunpo immediately complained. Well. Ling Yushu hesitated for a moment, but decided not to be polite. He got straight to the point and said, I'm the swordsmith of Tiangong workshop. I heard that you two have a 10th level immortal sword. I was so happy that I wanted to borrow it to have a look, just for a look. Zisu frowned again when he heard this, because borrowing a sword is very rude. What if you took the sword and ran away? What if you did something to the sword? Ling Yunpo didn't think so much, because he knew Ling Yushu's temper very well, and knew that he didn't have any bad intentions. Even if he had bad intentions, under the scanning surveillance of a Jin, what could he do to my Kingping? Therefore, he took out his Kingping sword and said generously, How difficult is this? Please take a look, senior. Scumbag. Kingping sword suddenly scolded. Ling Yunpo. Ling Yushu looked at the Kingping sword in his hand, but did not touch it rashly. He just looked at it carefully and said, Strange, it is said that the Jiao Kingping sword is 3 feet 6 inches and 5 points, which is the number of days in spring, summer, autumn and winter, but the immortal sword of Ling Doi is only 3 feet 6 inches, I think it must have been recast. Does the recast have any effect? Ling Yunpo asked puzzled. No effect. Ling Yushu smiled, the 5 points less actually makes the sword body more condensed, but it is not as good looking as 3 feet 6 inches and 5 points. Bullshit. Kingping sword immediately cursed, long is beautiful, right? Swordsmiths with this kind of aesthetics only understand the sword to this extent. Ling Yushu hesitated to speak, and Ling Yunpo immediately understood, and took out the Li Zi sword and Wangzhou sword. 9 Heavens Thunder sword. Ling Yushu sighed, in the past, Master Po used it to do evil, and even the heavenly tribulation could not do anything to it. Now in the hands of fellow Daoist Lin, I think it can be carried forward. Can the Thunder Sword also deal with heavenly tribulation? Ling Yunpo asked in surprise. I heard that the Thunder Sword was originally forged with heavenly thunder. In Master Pool's hands, it can attract heavenly thunder, thereby weakening the strength and power of heavenly tribulation, Ling Yushu said with a look of disappointment. I just don't know how he did it. Oh? Ling Yunpo was immediately very interested. This, the Thunder Sword was also surprised and said, I can weaken heavenly tribulation? How come I don't know? It doesn't matter. Ling Yunpo comforted it, when we go back, I will help you recall it, maybe you will remember it. Thunder Sword. Ling Yunpo put away the Thunder Sword with his backhand, and then took out the 10,000 bamboo sword. The 1,000 pines and 10,000 bamboo sword. Ling Yushu exclaimed in amazement, the sword that was once loved by Master Ping'an of Bayman Mountain. The method of refining this sword is very strange, even I don't understand it. But in my opinion, a flying sword doesn't have to be designed to be strong and fast. It is also very good to have a unique mechanism. Seeing that Ling Yushu was about to talk endlessly, Shiluli, who had long been impatient, interrupted him and said, Okay, big brother. Now that I have seen the sword, it's my turn to talk about business. Okay, little sister, you go. Seeing that Anzisu was also obviously a little irritated, Ling Yushu knew that his performance was a bit exaggerated, and hurriedly gave up his seat. Are you Ling Yunpo? Shiluli asked doubtfully. That's right. Ling Yunpo nodded and said. A person who walks and sits cannot change his name. It's not Ling Kun, but Ling Yunpo. It's unexpected that such an unreliable person like Miss Shi didn't call the wrong name. It's also strange. The next second, Shiluli's words startled Ling Yunpo again. Zisu's expression suddenly changed. Ling Yunpo. Have I seen you somewhere before? Chapter 433. The script has been arranged. Jing. Didn't you say that your illusion of flowers in the mirror moon in the water will never be exposed? Ling Yunpo asked anxiously. I don't know either. Kumlinjing said anxiously, I obviously didn't reveal any flaws. God can see that although Kumlinjing often couldn't stand Cheng Yonzu's shamelessness, he would occasionally remove the illusion to cover him up and let him show his true face in front of the girls, but that was only for the girls around the character. For example, when Ling Yunpo met Shiluli, Kumlinjing would never remove the illusion, otherwise Shiluli would recognize that Ling Yunpo and Luoyan were the same person, and this spy trick would not work, and the plan to repair the Sky Stone would also be over. No. King Ping Sword suddenly said, I don't think she may have seen any flaws, it's just intuition. Even this intuition is too outrageous. Ling Yunpo said in his heart, but said, have you seen it? Fellow Daoist, she may have made a mistake. Fellow Daoist Lin, think about it again. Shiluli insisted, Before he finished speaking, he was interrupted by Anzisu. Fellow Daoist Chi, my junior brother and I have always lived in seclusion in King Luo Peak of Shushan. May I ask if fellow Daoist Chi has ever been to Shushan? No. Shiluli frowned and said, but, junior brother has never been to Penglai Fairy Island before. Zisu continued, if fellow Daoist Chi insists that he and junior brother are old acquaintances, you can tell me where you met. There is no need to be so entangled. Ling Yushu tried to smooth things over, whether we knew each other before or not, we will be considered acquaintances in the future. Shiluli came here to find out why Ling Yunpo gave her such a familiar feeling, and how could Ling Yushu let him go so easily. She was about to continue asking questions regardless of the consequences, but suddenly realized another question. Why did Zisu across from me treat me as an enemy just because I asked this question? Did she mistakenly think that I liked her junior brother Ling Yunpo and deliberately found a reason to chat with him and get to know him? Thinking of this, Miss Shi suddenly became depressed again. She just came to satisfy her curiosity, not to cause a scandal. Besides, Ling Yunpo was not her favorite. It would be even worse if it was spread out and misunderstood by others. Sighing in her heart, Shiluli forced a smile and said, then I think I made a mistake. But as the eldest brother said, although we didn't know each other before, we will be considered to have known each other in the future. After that, she retreated behind Ling Yushu and said nothing. Ling Yushu exchanged a few more words with the two of them, and then took Shiluli to say goodbye and leave. As soon as the two left, Zisu looked at Sima Changyan and said in a bad tone, Brother Sima, what are you doing here? I didn't know that your peak has the custom of being a matchmaker. Sima Changyan naturally knew Zisu's temper, so he smiled and explained, Sister Am, that's Hinchkyo's Hanron is a well-known swordsmith. If we can have a good relationship with him, it will also be of many benefits to our Shushan. What benefits? Zisu said coldly, is it the benefit of forming a pill, or the benefit of turning into an infant? Is it the benefit of the sword, or the benefit of practicing? Sima Changyan couldn't say anything, so he had to smile apologetically to Ling Yunpo and said goodbye. Ling Yunpo was speechless when he heard it next to him, thinking that Sister Anne's cold and hard temper might have been cultivated by Sujian, and it was really difficult to correct it. If it were normal times, he would still have the mind to talk to Sister Anne and ask her not to offend people by being so blunt. But now, on the one hand, the senior sister was clearly jealous, and if he tried to persuade her, it would definitely have the opposite effect. On the other hand, he was also annoyed that Sima Changyan had attracted Miss Shi in order to curry favor with Lemshu, which frightened him, so he simply kept silent. Zisu also felt that she had just said something wrong, and was too embarrassed to mention it again, so she returned to the shore in a depressed mood, hugged her skirt, and squatted by the stove. Ling Yunpo also picked up the fishing rod again, and found that the bait had been eaten up, so he went back to kneading the meatballs. As a result, before he had pinched it a few times, he suddenly heard Lin Yulanzhen's voice from a distance. "Senior Sister Anne, Junior Brother Lin." Ling Yunpo sighed, turned around, and saw Lin Yulanzhen flying over on a sword, quickly landing on the ground, and hurriedly said, "That Qiu Chang's time is really incredible." Senior Sister Anne was already in a very bad mood because of Shilili's matter. When she heard Lin Yulanzhen mention Qiu Chang Tian, her eyebrows raised, and a murderous aura surged on her brows. She said coldly, "Junior Brother Lin, don't make a fuss, and tell me in detail." Lin Yulanzhen was about to speak, but suddenly saw Nzisu's unfriendly face, and then thought of Nzisu's attitude towards Qiu Chang Tian, so he immediately smiled and said, "It's not a big deal, but Qiu Chang Tian's use of the Tianyuan Yeki sword is really amazing. When it comes to sword skills, he is far inferior to Junior Brother Lin. By the way, are you fishing and drinking here?" "Junior Brother, I came here to ask for a glass of wine." Hearing that Lin Yulanzhen stopped talking about Qiu Chang Tian and praised his junior brother, Zisu's face immediately turned from gloomy to bright, and he said with a smile, "It's no big deal to have a glass of wine. The cup is over there, you can take it yourself." Lin Yulanzhen laughed, took the cup and poured himself a glass, and said to Ling Yunpo, "Junior Brother Lin, come on, let me drink a few glasses with you." Ling Yunpo knew that he wanted to talk to him, so he let Lin Yulanzhen pull him to the other side of the lake. He drank a glass of wine first, and then heard Lin Yulanzhen say seriously, "Junior Brother Lin, Qiu Chang Tian's strength is really too amazing. I'm afraid he is the biggest opponent competing with Senior Sister and for the top spot in this Baiyuzheng competition." Ling Yunpo asked in surprise, "What do you mean?" "True essence strength." Lin Yulanzhen replied, "Qiu Chang Tian is worthy at being a person with a clear mind of Tao. His true essence strength is extremely powerful and abundant. Even compared with the Jintan's Hinran, he is not weak at all. Now he has obtained the Tianyuan Yeki sword. The sword itself is extremely fast and powerful, which can best bring out Qiu Chang Tian's true essence advantage. In the two battles, the enemy could not withstand his attack at all, a typical crushing of the cultivation realm." "I see." Ling Yunpo thought, "This is not easy to deal with." "Isn't it?" Lin Yulanzhen said with a wry smile, not to mention that he also has the Five Thunders righteous method, and other trump cards we don't know about. "Indeed." Ling Yunpo expressed his approval. "The trump cards of my Qiu Da chief are countless. In short, you and Senior Sister Anne should be careful." Lin Yulanzhen finally reminded. He knew that if he went to tell Senior Sister Anne, Zisu would definitely not take it to heart, but would rebuke him for exaggerating, so he could only remind Ling Yunpo in a roundabout way. Ling Yunpo understood, and didn't expect that the future me would be so powerful. There is no way. Although he is reluctant, in order to maintain his invincible image, Qiu Chang Tian must defeat Zisu and get the first place in the Baiyuzheng competition. The next scenario is that Ling Yunpo and Senior Sister Anne both lost to Qiu Chang Tian in the competition. Qiu Chang Tian won the first place in the competition, maintaining his invincible character. Ling Yunpo knew shame and worked hard to maintain his unyielding character. Senior Sister Anne empathized with Junior Brother Ling, who also lost, and the affection between the Senior Sister and the brother increased by leaps and bounds. They worked hard together to practice and fight together to defeat Qiu Chang Tian. Chapter 434 Baiyuzheng Top 12. Half a month later. Since the Baiyuzheng competition is a one-way elimination system, half of the contestants will be eliminated after each round. Therefore, after about 16 days, there are only 100 people left on the field. 3 competitions will be held today, and the top 12 will be selected. Therefore, except for those monks who left early, almost all the remaining monks gathered in Baiyuzheng, waiting to see who the top 12 are. For Ling Yunpo, as long as he doesn't draw lots and encounter strong men like Qiu Cheng Tian, Luo Yan, and Nzesu, it is basically not difficult to win to the top 12. Even if he encounters Zhu Yinlian or Xie Luli, he has the confidence to beat the opponent. As for whether the opponent will ask Qiu Cheng Tian or Luo Yan for revenge, that is another matter. Let's not worry about it for now. Fortunately, 3 people are drawn from more than 100 people. Unless the luck is really bad, it is impossible to win the bid. The final result did not disappoint him. The 3 opponents were from Kunlin, Shushan and Penglai. They were all ordinary opponents that Qiu Cheng Tian, Ling Yunpo and Luo Yan knew in their sects. However, Ling Yunpo easily defeated them. After 3 duels, Ling Yunpo was confirmed to advance to the top 12 of Baiyujing. The next step was to arrange the specific seeds. When he came to the competition venue of Senior Sisteran, he saw that the Shushan disciples surrounded him the most. Nzesu was attacking quickly on the field, and Sima Chengyan on the opposite side was struggling and difficult to resist. Brother Sima is also unfortunate. He is only one last duel away from the top 12, but he accidentally drew with Nzesu. Julanfan Hai side with emotion on the second floor stance. Luck is also a part of strength. Oh, junior brother Lin is here. Yuan Jinu turned around and smiled. How is it? 1. Ling Yunpo replied. Then in this way, at least 5 people from Shushan have been confirmed to advance to the top 12. Julanfan Hai nodded and said, all the top 5 seats are intact. The 6th seed, Brother Sima can't be a match for Senior Sisteran. Among the remaining people, it depends on whether Bashan from the 7th seat can win. It should be no problem. Yuan Jinu said with a smile, her opponent is Ling Ru from Penglayu King Temple. Then she is definitely going to win. Lin Yulanzhen nodded and said, my niece's strength is still inferior to Bishan. That means Shushan accounts for half of the top 12, right? Ling Yunpo asked for confirmation. Yes. Lin Yulanzhen nodded and said, but if the faction wants to establish its prestige with this, it's not enough. As if they had sensed something, everyone looked up at the opposite side. On the 3rd floor stands, Qiu Cheng Tian and Zhu Yinlian were standing side by side, watching the battle between Nzesu and Sima Chengyan below. The most popular person to win the competition should be Qiu Cheng Tian. Lin Yulanzhen sighed, if our Shushan can't get the first place, even if we occupy half of the 12 seeds, it doesn't mean anything. Qiu Cheng Tian's foundation is too perfect, and he can't win by relying on his sword skills. Julanfan Hai also said in a deep voice, based on his performance in so many battles, I even suspect that he has formed a Jade Palace and has at least 400 years of Immortal Cultivation. 2nd grade golden elixir, right? Yuan Jinu said with a smile, then why haven't you formed an elixir yet? Maybe he's waiting to form a 1st grade golden elixir. Ling Yunpo said casually. If Qiu Cheng Tian really forms a 1st grade golden elixir, he will really become the first person in the Orthodox sect. Lin Yulanzhen said with emotion, who will dare to compete with Kunlun in the future? No. Ling Yunpo said calmly. Why? Even if Qiu Cheng Tian forms a 1st grade golden elixir, Kunlun will definitely keep it strictly confidential. Yuan Jinu said with a smile. Indeed. Julanfan Hai echoed, a tree that stands out in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. Even if he has formed a 1st grade golden elixir, he is only a golden elixir real person. What should we do if the demon sect sends 3 or 5 yearning elders to keep an eye on Qiu Cheng Tian's movements every day? I'm coming. Baishan's voice suddenly came from behind. She came to the right of Ling Yunpo, looked down and asked, how is Sima Chengyan? Still holding on. Ling Yunpo replied, it's only a matter of time before he is defeated by my senior sister. Did you in? Yes. Baishan said concisely, how many of us in Shushan can make it to the top 12? 6, including you and me. Ling Yunpo replied. Among the other 6, 4 are from Kunlun and 2 are from Penglai. Lin Yulanzhen added, the ones who advanced from Kunlun are Qiu Cheng Tian, Zhu Yinlian, Yuanzhen and Yanzichui. Chief Qiu, Phoenix Fairy, these 2 are not surprising. Julanfan Hai thought thoughtfully, Yuanzhen, senior sister Yuan, is she from your clan? My cousin. Yuan Jinu said lightly. Sister Yuan's cousin, why did he become a disciple of Kunlun? Baishan asked in confusion. Who knows? Yuan Jinu obviously didn't want to talk more, and said evasively, maybe there is a reason. As for Yanzichui, he is also Qiu Cheng Tian's junior brother, ranked 4th, behind Yuanzhen. Lin Yulanzhen continued, his strength is okay, but he is still far from the top level. He was just lucky and drew a weak opponent, so he finally advanced to the top 12. Speaking of luck, the one from Penglai is the lucky one. Julian van Heij sneered. Today in the second round of the competition, 45-23, she drew a bye and advanced directly. In the third round, 23-12, she drew a bye again and was directly sent to the top 12. I even suspect that this person has some magic or magic treasure to interfere with the drawing. I saw her fight in the first round of the competition. Yuan Jinu suddenly said, her swordsmanship is really average, but she has a magic weapon called Tuigu Chenya Pokusingzar, which is an attack and defense in one, and it is absolutely difficult to deal with. Junior Brothers used all the Taoist magic on his sword, but he couldn't even break her Star Sand Defensor, so he had to admit defeat in the end. I can only say that apart from luck, this person does have the strength to advance to the top 12. Are you talking about Junior Brothers and Chen Yuan, who is ranked 17th on the Immortal Sword ranking? Lin Yulanzhen asked in surprise. What else? Yuan Jinu asked back, how many other Junior Brothers are there in Kuzu Peak? What about the other one in New King Temple? Basheng suddenly asked. That person is called Luo Yan. Lin Yulanzhen replied, he is probably the biggest trump card of Yu King Temple this time. What do you mean? Ling Yunpo asked with interest. Heavenly Craft's treasure bag. Lin Yulanzhen replied. Heavenly Craft's treasure bag from Tiangong Workshop. Basheng nodded thoughtfully. It seems that if we draw lot against him later, the best strategy is to kill him quickly. But he must have a defensive magic weapon. Julian van Heij raised an objection. Not only does he have a defensive magic weapon, but he also has the acquired 5 elements Great Extinction Divine Light. I just want to ask if you were afraid. Ling Yunpo smiled in his heart. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Mundo Fanfic Novelers, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelers. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 435. Shushan comments on the world's heroes. As the top 12 of Baiyuzheng were determined, the 3 sects had different attitudes. Kunlun sect was slightly dissatisfied because there were only 4 people in the top 12, 2 fewer than Shushan. As the leader of the righteous sect, Kunlun Tai King sect was not satisfied with this result. But considering that if Qiu Chang Time could win the first place, he could still save face, so he temporarily waited and saw. Shushan sect was very calm. After all, it had achieved the small goal of occupying half of the 12 seats. But everyone knows that the casual cultivators in the world don't care how many people in your sect entered the top 12, they only care about who is the best in the world. So it is very important to know who can beat Qiu Chang Tian, whether it is Ling Yulanzhen, Julian van Heij or Yuan Jinu. Basheng's strength is still a little worse. As for Ling Yunpo and Zhesu, if they can really win the first place, everyone will not have to pick bones in the egg, but whether it is from personal feelings or the attitude of the top management, they all hope that the other 3 can get the first place. As for Penglai, it is already ecstatic. Originally, they thought that 1 place would be a victory, but they ended up taking 2 places, which was indeed excellent beyond expectations. Considering that both disciples were from Tiangong Workshop, it is said that Kshandu sect master also invited Elder Shiding to preach the way of being a teacher in Yu King Temple, which was laughed at by the other 2 sects for a while. In any case, the name of the top 12 of Baiyuzheng has spread to the 3 sects of the Orthodox Church, and through the personal connections of various disciples, it has spread to the whole world. On the Shushan side, Yuzheng sect master rushed to Tianmu Mountain overnight to award the 6 people who entered the top 12. This is the Vermilion Pill. You must digest the medicinal power as soon as possible tonight. Ling Yunpo received the Vermilion Pill and suddenly asked, do the other 2 sects have similar rewards? Maybe. The head of Yuzheng said meaningfully, at the last moment of the competition, it is actually a tacit understanding among the sects to strengthen their own disciples. Ling Yunpo suddenly remembered that in his first battle after joining Shushan, the opponent used some secret method to temporarily break through and advance to the marrow cleansing stage. Do you have a clear understanding of the next 6 opponents? The head of Yuzheng asked again. Everyone was silent. Although it was impossible for everyone to be completely confused about the intelligence at this point, they did not dare to be rash in front of the head of Yuzheng. What if the head asked a few questions and they could not answer them? Wouldn't it be embarrassing? Okay. The head of Yuzheng nodded and waved. Jin, you come and tell them. Yes, master. Jin Wuzhenren pushed the door in from outside. After the Shushang competition, it was this Master Jingwu who led everyone to the Demon Locking Tower for the trial, so everyone was familiar with him. After seeing off the head of Yujing, Master Jingwu gave everyone a jade slip and said solemnly, "The competitors you will face next are 4 from Kunlun and 2 from Penglai. Kunlun Qiu Chang Tian, the chief of the Foundation Building Realm, has been confirmed to have at least the cultivation of the Jade Mansion. In addition, he is practicing the 9 Heavens Pure Land Realm mantra, which has opened up a huge gap with you in terms of the capacity, strength, and recovery rate of his true energy. His weapon is the Tianyuan Yeki sword, which is said to be found by the Zhu family. This sword can give full play to his true energy advantage. If the flying swords collide head-on, the force will be extremely great, so you need to avoid frequent sword fights with him. In addition, there are also derivative Taoist methods of the Five Thunders Orthodox method and the Qi refining technique, which you need to pay special attention to." Everyone was silent. This silence was truly speechless. The true essence is strong, the flying sword is powerful, and there is also thunder magic. Each of these 3 points can be used as the capital to rank among the top 12 in Beijing. Now that the 3 of Kyodazan have gathered together, there is no weakness, and they are crushing in all directions. How can they fight? Perhaps seeing everyone's thoughts, Master Jingwu did not intend to say more, so as not to lower morale too much, and jumped directly to the next person. Kunlun's Yu Yinlian, it is said that she has awakened the family's true blood and has the power of the phoenix. Her flying sword is called Yujia. It is not strong among the 10th level flying swords, but it fits her own phoenix blood very well. There is also a Taisu Yuan Jinsing Xuan D8 Wangming fire, which is a top level wide area fire method. It can burn mountains and boil seas and cover the sky. Ordinary defensive magic weapons can't support it at all. Compared to Qiu Chang Tian, this Zhu Yinglian has a weakness. Who of you knows it? She masters all fire methods. Lin Yulanzan replied. Not bad. Master Jingwu nodded approvingly. Both her flying sword and her Taoist magic are heavily biased towards the fire system, probably because her own phoenix blood has a great bonus to the fire system. Therefore, the best way to deal with Zhu Yinglian is to use flying swords and Taoist magic of the water and earth systems, followed by the fire system, and the worst is the wood and metal systems. Of course, to restrain her fire attack methods, if the grade is not high enough, just the 5 elements will not be enough, and we need to be cautious. Everyone nodded, thinking that the strongest opponents of this competition are probably these 2. In addition, there is another person you need to pay attention to. Master Jingwu suddenly said. Who is it? Lin Yulanzan frowned and asked. Penglai Luoyan. Jin Wuxinren replied, this man is the direct disciple of Elder Shiding of the Tiangong workshop of Yu King Temple. Elder Shiding has passed the Tiangong by Bahu bag to him. Yes. Julanfan Hewai nodded and said, but it takes time to use and activate the magic weapon after all. If his swordsmanship is not good, we can completely use the offensive method to suppress him throughout the process, so that he can't take out the magic weapon at all. That's exactly what I want to say. Jin Wuxinren said seriously, Luo Yan didn't use the flying sword during the competition. But according to some intelligence, it is said that the immortal sword he used is the Wang Chime Kun sword obtained from the Li Ancient Treasure House. Wang Chime Kun sword? Everyone was shocked when they heard this. This name, isn't it the sword worn by the Yellow Emperor back then? It is said that this sword is of the earth element and is extremely heavy. Master Jingwu continued, it is not as powerful and fast as the Tianyuan Yeki sword, but its strength and toughness are far superior. When fighting with him, no matter how much true energy you put in, it will be like hitting a stone with a piece of wood, and you will not be able to shake the Wang Chime Kun sword at all. Ling Yunpo had a serious expression, but he sneered in his heart. Well, I planned to deliberately not use the Wang Chime Kun sword, and I had a trump card, but now I didn't expect that it had already been discovered. According to Master Jin, this was obviously a leak from the Yu King Temple, and the person who leaked the secret must have seen the process of my sword fighting with others. Fortunately, except for Shiluli, I have never used the acquired 5 elements divine light in the sparring with others. Well, Master Jin probably doesn't know, otherwise, with the reputation of the 5 elements divine light, I must have mentioned it here. Except for these 3 people who need to be especially on guard, the information about the other 3 is in the jade slips given to you. Jin Wuxinren finally said, you should study it carefully tonight, think carefully, and don't fight an unprepared battle. In addition, the medicinal power of the Zhu Yidan must be digested as soon as possible. Do you understand? I understand. Everyone agreed and then dispersed. Ling Yunpo followed Nzisu back to the thatched cottage, thinking that after taking this Zhusuidan, his Wafu cultivation would have been 715 years. It is only 85 years away from the 800-year threshold of the first-grade golden elixir. Think about it carefully, since Shushan is playing this trick of reinforcement before the battle, will Kunlun and Penglai remain indifferent? Okay, give me all the Xifu secret medicine, and make up these 800 years. As soon as the Bayujing competition is over, I will find a place to survive the first-grade elixir tribulation. Chapter 436. Sister Am's crushing victory. The top 12 of Bayujing were decided. If we follow that business thinking of modern people, we must first hold an award ceremony, then dig out a lot of personalities for each person, and finally arrange a large number of endorsement activities to recover the cost. Unfortunately, whether it is Kunlun, Shushan or Penglai, there is no such commercial thinking. Or maybe everyone thinks that since the top 12 of Bayujing had been decided, the names of these 12 righteous newcomers will naturally spread throughout the world. Therefore, before the disciples have discussed for a long time, the competition among the top 12 has quickly begun. Draw lots. 12 swords shot out from the lottery tube, and everyone used the sword control method to capture the flying swords in the air. Soon, as all the swords were obtained, the jade list on the Bayujing square soon emerged with the first round of battle list. Qiu Changtai vs. Bishan. Nzisu vs. Juanfen Hebai. Ling Yunpo vs. Shiluli. Zhu Yinglyan vs. Lin Juanzhen. Luoyan vs. Guanzhen. Yuanchenu vs. Yan Zichui. Except for the two people's unhappy faces, everyone's expressions were relatively calm. After all, there are not many weaklings who can pick up leaks among the cultivators who can reach the top 12. Unless they face Qiu Changtai and Nzisu at the beginning, everyone can basically accept it. People like Juanfen Hebai and Bishan are poor people who can't accept it but have no choice. The 6 battles were not held at the same time, but were held in the center of the largest Bayujing square in sequence, so that the cultivators of the 3 sects can watch at the same time. Everyone either flew swords or took flying magic tools, floating in the air around them, while Qiu Changtai and Bishan stood in the center of the square, ready to fight. Ling Yunpo didn't plan to watch Qiu Changtai's battle. You know, the more details you see, the more details you need to repeat in the future, so he won't ask for trouble. So he proposed to go for a walk nearby, and Nzisu was fine. Senior sister didn't want to watch Qiu Changtai's game either, especially since Bishan was unlikely to beat him. The two came to a higher building and suddenly saw Juanfen Hebai flying through the air with a sword. Brother Juan, what are you doing? Ling Yunpo greeted him. Why don't you go to watch the fight? Juanfen Hebai just pressed down the sword light, but did not land on the ground, and just said, well, just strolling around. I have watched Qiu Changtai's fight many times. The result this time is not suspenseful, and I won't meet him again in the next big fight, so why should I watch it? Ling Yunpo knew what he meant. After all, after losing to Nzisu in the next game, he fell into the loser group of 7th to 12th place, while Qiu Changtai entered the winner group of 1st to 6th place, and there was indeed no chance to fight. But it doesn't matter, Brother Juan, you have a chance to fight with my sister Anne. Anyway, it's just a beating, so why bother about who the opponent is? Juanfen Hebai didn't know what Ling Yunpo was thinking. He just waved his hand in the air, turned around and went back to the square. Ling Yunpo looked at Nzisu and was about to speak when he saw the sword in Sister Am's hand light up immediately, flew out of her hand, and flew towards the direction of Bayujing Square. So fast? It hasn't been 5 minutes yet. Ling Yunpo was surprised. He didn't expect that Qiu Changtai was so strong. He quickly flew up on his sword and followed Nzisu to the square. He saw Juanfen Hebai just landing from the square and bowed helplessly. The duel began. Juanfen Hebai immediately resisted Nzisu's attack with the Tianfeng sword and launched the Taoist method on the Kantai sword. Countless starlight suddenly appeared and shot towards Nzisu like a barrage. For a time, it actually covered the entire field and seemed unavoidable. Another red sword light burst out, and Nzisu directly merged with the sword. The sword light penetrated countless star bullets and fiercely killed Juanfen Hebai. Juanfen Hebai was helpless when he saw this. After all, he was not arrogant enough to use ordinary sword moves to defend against the big move of the mowing sword Immortal. He could only be forced to combine his body with the blue iron sword and use the same body and sword unity to make the iron sword light also surge and forcefully meet the red sword light. The two sword lights directly bombarded each other, instantly igniting the atmosphere of the whole venue. No one expected that the two Shushan monks would use big moves at the beginning. The red sword light and the iron sword light collided again, and then were shaken away by the violent force. Turning a corner, they attacked fiercely again. For a while, the sound of metal hitting each other was endless, almost forming a large thunder sound. Laymen watch the excitement, and experts see the doorway. Ling Yunpo's eyes were fixed on the two sword lights, and he confirmed that the red sword light was ahead of the iron sword light in terms of bombardment force and rotation speed after being shaken back. At such a terrible speed, all magic weapons, Taoist methods, all lost their meaning, and there was no time to activate them. Juan Van Hei knew he was no match for him, so he could only force himself to hold on. After all, using the unity of body and sword to fight was equivalent to chronic suicide. If he didn't use the unity of body and sword, he would die immediately. He didn't have much choice at all. It's really terrible. Lin Yulanzhen had come to Ling Yunpo's side at some point and exclaimed, "Last time it was Qiu Changtian who won by force, and this time it's Sister Anne's turn to crush him. Is there really an insurmountable gap between us and her? Isn't it?" Ling Yunpo smiled and said, "If the gap in the realm of cultivation can be easily made up by technology, then what's the point of breathing and refining qi? But, isn't Sister Anne practicing the same qi refining technique as us?" Lin Yulanzhen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It can't be because her father is the 7 killings immortal, so her natural breathing and refining speed is faster than ours. Hey, it's really not. She practiced the Tiesan Ryu Hunyuan Sutra, and you practiced the castrated version of the Tiesan Hunyuan Sutra. The two are not qi refining techniques of the same level. Ling Yunpo secretly complained in his heart, only to see the winner finally decided on the field. The red sword light suddenly increased by several feet, and with one strike, the iron sword light was knocked out of the field. Juan Van Hei's body hit the edge of the square heavily, and the blue iron sword was also blown away, and several onlookers who had no time to dodge were injured. Shushan and Zesu wins. A mechanical voice sounded around the jade list. There was silence for a moment, and then suddenly a noisy sound broke out. It was just that there were chirping sounds everywhere, and it was impossible to hear what everyone was discussing. I just heard a few Kunlun disciples talking. Yuan Jinu also appeared from nowhere and laughed. Zesu was probably the only one who can challenge Qiu Changtian in this competition. Really? Ling Yunpo smiled slightly. Sorry, it's impossible, absolutely impossible. As Qiu Changtian, I'm invincible. Whether it's Zhu Yinlian, Zesu, or you, Senior Sister Yuan, either they can't meet, or they meet and are defeated by me. There is no third possibility. What are you still doing here? Yuan Jinu asked curiously. It's your turn. Oh. Ling Yunpo quickly pressed down the sword light. Shili had already landed on the square one step ahead, staring at him with wide eyes, and there seemed to be a doubt in his eyes, as if he was still thinking about where he had seen him before, and where the familiar sense of Zhu came from. Fellow Daoist Chi. Ling Yunpo clasped his fists and saluted. Yeah. Shili responded absent-mindedly, not knowing what he was saying. Still doubting me, right? Okay. I'll beat you so soon that you won't have time to think about it. Chapter 437. A return with Miss Shi. When the duel began, Ling Yunpo did not take the initiative, but waited for Shili to attack. I, Ling Yunpo, cannot afford to lose face when I have to attack against a mere Miss Shi. If I were not afraid of being criticized by the Shushan high-level officials after returning, I could let Miss Shi have both hands and fight her with my feet to control the sword, okay? Referring to the unity of body and sword, his gentlemanly behavior soon made the surrounding monks cheer. Shili was a little surprised, and did not say much, but first offered the purple extreme Hunyuan sword. Why is junior brother Ling so polite? It's unnecessary, isn't it? Lin Yulanzhen said with a wry smile. What do you know? Zesu, who had just won, returned to the sidelines and said seriously, even if I give the opponent time to prepare, junior brother is confident that he can beat the opponent, so I am gentlemanly. I just hope he doesn't capsize in the gutter. Juan Van Hei sighed. How is that possible? He is not you. Zesu turned on the unconditional protection mode, and Juan Van Hei was speechless. Puff. Yuan Jinu couldn't help laughing. What are you laughing at? Zesu was displeased. Nothing, my face is cramped. Yuan Jinu turned her head away, her shoulder still twitching. On the field, Shili took the lead in launching an attack, shooting the purple extreme condensation sword at Ling Yunpo. Such a crude swordsmanship is enough to deal with ordinary cultivators, but it is not very effective in Ling Yunpo's opinion. The Kingpin sword lightly blocked and shook the purple extreme condensation sword away. But she really wanted this opportunity, and she saw her hand pinching the Duo formula and quickly launching the Nando Xinghe secret technique. A large amount of river water suddenly gushed out from the originally empty Bayujing square. These river waters swirled and rushed, and in an instant, they completely submerged the entire square, shocking the surrounding low-level cultivators to raise their sword lights, fearing that they would be swallowed by the surging waves below. "What is that?" Lin Yuanzhen said in surprise, "The Duo on the sword." Since Mishi always advances by chance, this secret technique is the first time she has used it in the Bayujing competition. "No, it's the Duo." Zisu said in a deep voice, "If it was the Duo on the sword, her true essence wouldn't last that long." Ling Yunpo had already stepped on the Wangzhu sword and ascended into the air. He saw a dragon-like water column suddenly gushing out of the river water under his feet, shooting straight at his body like a cannon. This water was not ordinary water, but the water of the Tianhe River. A drop of water was thousands of times heavier, and its power was even greater than that of a flying sword, enough to smash a person alive. Ling Yunpo knew what was going on, so he just shot out the Kingpin sword, slashed horizontally and vertically several times in a row, and then cut the dragon column into pieces. She Li stood half of her body in the water and exclaimed. She knew the power of the Nando Xinghe secret technique very well. It looked like an ordinary stream of water, but the force in it was so great that it could split mountains and rocks. The other party was able to cut it into pieces with the Kingpin sword, which showed that the hardness and power of the Kingpin sword were also extraordinary. It was indeed the 11th level immortal sword that the senior brother had been thinking about. However, my tricks are more than that. Last night, junior brother Luo and I had already designed many tricks, the corners of her mouth slightly raised, revealing a secret smile, and the Duo formula in her sleeves was pinched again. The dragon pillar that was chopped into pieces by Ling Yunpo, and the scattered water suddenly rose in the opposite direction as if ignoring gravity, and swept towards Ling Yunpo again. It turned out that Mishi secretly scattered the Tuigu Chenyapo star sand and mixed it with the water of the Tianhe River. This star sand is a magic weapon of Shilali's ki and has long been refined to the state of mind turning at will. While the dragon pillar was shattered by Ling Yunpo, it immediately rose from the water and shot towards Ling Yunpo. Since the star sand can gather or disperse, ordinary flying swords can do nothing about it. As long as the cultivator is caught in the star sand, then wrapped and crushed, his arms, legs and feet will all be turned into powder. Of course, in this Bayujing secret realm, he will not be injured, and at best he will just be defeated. Unfortunately, Mishi didn't know that the man opposite actually had all the information about Brother Luo. Ling Yunpo just quickly pulled up the Wangzhu sword, pointed his hand downward, and chanted, "Running Qi Lei Jin, chasing evil and falling." As soon as the voice fell, the Lei Jin suddenly disappeared, and then turned into hundreds of lightning spears, falling rapidly downward. Shili was startled and didn't dare to be arrogant, so he quickly flew away from the water with his sword. The lightning spear passed through the star sand and instantly generated magnetic force, sucking the surrounding star sand into a ball, and then quickly fell into the Tianhe River, and a large number of electric snakes swam around like an explosion. Shili. Wait, my star sand magical treasure, the weakness is actually the thunder method. If Luo Yan was here, he would tell her that it had nothing to do with the thunder method, but the sealing method of the thunder sword, which contained a part of the Yuan magnetic force. The Yuan magnetic force is the nemesis of all metal and iron in the world. The base of star sand is made of meteorite iron, so it is no exception. In a panic, Shili hurriedly accelerated the water of the Tianhe River, spraying out 7 or 8 dragons, circling up and biting Ling Yunpo. Ling Yunpo was not in a hurry to use a killing move. After all, if he really wanted to kill her in seconds, he could just merge his body and sword into one. With Mishi's swordsmanship attainments, he would definitely not be able to resist. But Shili was defeated too quickly. After the battle, he would definitely catch Luo Yan to vent his anger. Wouldn't this cause trouble for his future self? Let's just act it out a little. He calmly flew his sword, dodging the attacks of the Tianhe dragons, and shattered them one by one with the Kingpin sword. The thunder sword kept falling, using lightning and electric snakes to block Shili's movement, and gradually caught up with the rhythm of the battlefield. Even though Shili had incredible luck, facing such a huge gap in strength, it seemed that he couldn't play a role. Mishi herself didn't believe that she could beat the second Shushan, so this approach was even more impossible. So after a quarter of an hour, Shili's true essence was finally exhausted, and she couldn't activate the water of the Tianhe River. The thunder sword was placed on her neck, and she had to admit defeat. Oh, there was really no suspense. Ling Yunpo landed on the white jade square full of puddles, smiled at the extremely frustrated, annoyed, and unwilling Miss Shi, and then flew away again. Returning to Nzisu's side, he saw Lin Yulanzan and his people looking at him with some strange eyes. "What are you doing?" Ling Yunpo asked inexplicably. "Junior brother Lin." Lin Yulanzan said in confusion, "You are letting her off too much. With her poor level, is it necessary to fight for a quarter of an hour? Wouldn't it be better to just use the sword and body to kill her and leave the field?" Julanfanhai asked in confusion. "Oh, I just thought her water-based Taoism was interesting and wanted to play with it." Ling Yunpo explained hurriedly. "Junior brother Ling has a pure heart, so it's understandable that he wants to play with it." Yuan Jinu covered her mouth and laughed, "But what junior brother is really interested in is not the water-based Taoism, but Miss Shi, right?" Ling Yunpo shuddered suddenly and shouted to Nzisu beside him, "Senior sister, don't listen to their nonsense. I have no frivolous intentions towards Miss Shi, nor do I have any intention of teasing her." Nzisu looked at him in a daze, then showed a doting smile that seemed to protect her, and said, "Of course I believe in junior brother, don't talk nonsense anymore." Lin Yulanzan and others laughed. "However, junior brother, you did have several flaws when you fought just now, you can talk about it." Nzisu said with a smile, and that smile seemed to have changed in Ling Yunpo's eyes. "Come, senior sister, I will find a place to teach you." "No, senior sister." Ling Yunpo didn't understand what happened, and wanted to struggle and beg, but was wrapped in the sword light by senior sister and disappeared in an instant. Ling Yunpo calculated Shilili's thoughts, but did not calculate Nzisu's thoughts. It can be said that he was too smart. Chapter 438. A back and forth with senior sister Anne. In addition to the 12 pavilions used for the official competition, the Baiyuzheng secret realm also has many independently suspended spacious pavilions, which provide temporary places for the trial participants to rest and rest. Of course, during the competition, this is also a competition venue for the monks who have nowhere to vent their energy to practice, compete, and exchange skills in private. Like the restrictions in the pavilions and squares, sword skills competitions in these pavilions will not cause fatal damage. When the fatal damage is about to hit the target will be temporarily isolated from the space to avoid being killed on the spot. As long as they don't die on the spot, with the immortal methods of the immortal cultivators, whether it is the physical damage of the flying sword magic weapon or the 5 elements damage of the Taoist method, it can be quickly treated and healed. By the way, the reason why that demon sect is called the demon sect is mainly because there are many magic damages mixed with turbid air in their skills, which cannot be quickly treated by conventional means, and thus are criticized as too insidious. Ling Yunpo was hit in the chest by the Feian sword, and felt a sweetness in his throat, and his body flew backwards quickly. Although he seemed to have suffered internal injuries, he could recover with a little conditioning. As the saying goes, the whole body is like a sword blade, the body is tough, which is also the strength of the natural sword bone. Nzisu was hit on the arm by the Kingping sword, to be precise, it was the Hanlai sword that hit her arm when it was knocked back after resisting the attack of the Kingping sword, so that her shoulder joint was immediately dislocated. Ling Yunpo pressed his chest, thinking that no matter how many times they practiced, the swordsmanship of the senior sister was still so sharp that it was difficult to defend against. Nzisu's natural swordsmanship was more refined in swordsmanship moves, and her intuition and judgment on the battlefield were also very accurate. And his natural sword bones have added to the speed, strength and sensitivity of the flying sword. In other words, the senior sister is good at skills, while he is good at strength. Since we have to play to our strengths and avoid our weaknesses, we can't compete with senior sister in swordsmanship, but try to overpower her with force as much as possible. Of course, this would make practicing swordsmanship meaningless, so Ling Yunpo usually doesn't do this. But now, senior sister Anne, who has always been gentle as water, is rarely angry. She wants to vent her anger in the name of practice. How can I easily give in and let her do whatever she wants? Therefore, Ling Yunpo also took out a tenacious attitude and simply started to hurt senior sister Anne. "Junior brother." Nzisu took a pill, then straightened his broken arm, and said faintly, "Didn't I say not to exchange injuries for injuries? If not, I'm afraid it would be difficult to resist senior sister's sword moves." Ling Yunpo adjusted his breath and swallowed the anger that surged in his heart. Nzisu raised his sword finger, and Feian's sword shot out again, but Ling Yunpo controlled Kingping's sword to block it. Finally, he spoke softly and asked, "Junior brother Lin, do you really not know Shiluli?" "Senior sister, I've said it all, I don't know her." Ling Yunpo said seriously, trying his best to resist the various attacks of Feian's sword. Then why should we give her courtesy in the battle? Zisu asked with a smile, but the sword formula in his hand was pinched more urgently. It was just a spur of the moment. Ling Yunpo quickly guided the Legion to move sideways, blocking the handlei sword that attacked from the side. I've never seen you so spur of the moment. Zisu said in a deep voice, quickly pulling away the attack line, increasing Ling Yunpo's defensive pressure. His expression finally became a little angry. An angry senior sister is indeed unique. Senior sister, are you jealous? Ling Yunpo used a psychological killer move. The force transmitted from the sword suddenly became heavier. No. Zisu denied immediately, I'm just worried that you'll be cheated. Cheated? Ling Yunpo pretended to be puzzled. Who are you worried about me being cheated by? Junior brother hasn't told me yet how you know Shialuli. Zisu's word hinted at something strange. Ling Yunpo laughed. If you're worried about Shialuli, I don't think it's necessary. Because I really didn't know Shialuli before, and I don't have any interest in dealing with her. The force from the sword suddenly weakened a bit. Really? Zisu frowned and asked. Of course it's true. Ling Yunpo smiled. I think it's fake. Zisu forced a smile, pinched a few more sword gestures, and the offensive quickly turned to urgency. Then how can senior sister believe it? Ling Yunpo was almost broken by her defense line, and quickly stabilized the rhythm again, and asked. Then swear. Zisu said softly. I'm Ling Yunpo. I didn't know Shialuli before, and I have no interest in dealing with her. Ling Yunpo swore without hesitation, if I break this oath, okay. You don't have to say it. Zisu interrupted him hurriedly, put away the two swords, and sighed, Junior brother, it's not that I'm too concerned or too lenient, I just really don't trust you. In our King Luo Peak lineage, whether it's the master or the senior sister, we are actually not people with exquisite minds. If we don't have extra care in normal times, it's easy to be deceived. Master once said that it's better to be good at swords than to be good at talking. Zisu said a lot of things in a row, in short, explaining that he was not jealous, but because he was worried that his junior brother would be deceived, he interfered and asked about the relationship between him and Shialuli. Ling Yunpo naturally smiled and agreed one by one, but he secretly complained in his heart. I didn't expect that senior sister was usually gentle and protective of her appearance, but she was actually a weird old jealous person. The contrast was too great for him to accept. But on second thought, why do you think that senior sister can only be a gentle personality? Gentleness? Can gentleness kill all the Shushan disciples who call her mowing sword fairy? She also cuts people's natal swords at every turn and makes deadly enemies with people. Yes, senior sister is not gentle at all, but a character with a clear distinction between love and hate. She is extremely gentle when she loves, but if she hates, it is another matter. Well, when I, Ling Yunpo, plan to seize the booty in stone one day, I must fake my death to escape. Otherwise, I'm afraid that senior sister will hunt me down and I will have nowhere to escape. Thinking of this, Ling Yunpo smiled and said, Senior sister, let's go back to watch the competition. Okay. Zisu touched his sleeves, took out a medicine bottle, and stuffed it into his hand. Take 3 pills, don't leave any hidden injuries on your body. Senior sister, if you are worried that I will be injured, why didn't you show mercy just now? Ling Yunpo said with a smile. As a sword immortal, how can you not get hurt? Zisu forced himself to remain calm, not wanting to talk about jealousy anymore, so he took out the wine flask from his arms and fed him the pill himself. Ling Yunpo swallowed the pill, feeling the medicinal power dissolving in his danton, and suddenly all the aches, pains, numbness, and small wounds on his body disappeared. Why is this pill of yours so effective, senior sister? It's just an ordinary Jiawulu pill, crushed and mixed with Liakshan Chuan Huang powder, and then molded into a pill again. Then I guess it contains senior sister's tenderness. Stop talking nonsense. Come with me to watch the competition. Chapter 439. Ask your junior brother to wash his neck. When the two returned to Baiyuzheng Square, they realized that they had already gone through 2 rounds of competition. Zhu Yingyan defeated Lin Yuanzhen, and Luo Yan defeated Guanzhen. It was said that the fight was quite thrilling and exciting, but it was a pity that Ling Yunpo was busy dealing with senior sister An's temper at the time and did not see it. It's okay, Qiu Changtian will watch Zhu Yingyan's fight. Luo Yan will play it again in the future anyway, so it doesn't matter. At this time, the last fight of the day was still going on in the field, that is, Yuan Zhenyu against Yan Zichui. Yan Zichui is Qiu Changtian's 4th junior brother. He always holds the scriptures and reads them. I don't know if he comes to practice Taoism or to study for the imperial examination. In addition, this junior brother is relatively upright and has the temperament of a Confucian gentleman. Qiu Changtian has a good impression of him. At this time, Yan Zichua has already sacrificed the scripture magic weapon in his arms, and constantly released huge seal characters from it, bombarding Yuan Chenyu. However, with only this level of means, let alone Yuan Chenyu, it is estimated that even Yuan Zhen can't do anything. Yuan Chenyu just easily manipulated the flying sword and chopped the worlds into pieces one by one. Ling Yunpo knew at a glance that she was not going to use a killing move, so she was just patiently waiting for the opportunity to defeat Yan Zichua with ordinary sword moves, so as to hide more trump cards in the later games. Senior sister Yuan has already won the game. Julanfen Hai said from the side. Ling Yunpo silently glanced at him. How come no matter where my sister and I watch the game, we can see you nearby? Not bad. Lin Yulanzhen also echoed, Yan Zichua from cunning, although there are no obvious shortcomings, is too mediocre in all aspects and can't come up with a killing move that can make the final decision. It seems that although Chief Qiu can fight, he is not good at teaching. Bashan came over to join in the fun. Ling Yunpo laughed and complained in his heart. What do you mean by not good at teaching? You don't know that my other identity Wei Dongliu has already established a sect, okay? In this way, there are only 3 people in our Shushan who can enter the top 6. Lin Yulanzhen said with emotion. It's okay that I lost to senior sister Anne. Julanfen Hai joked, Lin Yulanzhen, you shouldn't have lost to the Phoenix Fairy. No way. Lin Yulanzhen laughed freely, although I have made preparations, the Phoenix Fairy's great light flame is really my nemesis. Ling Yunpo also felt a little emotional. Senior brother Lin Yulanzhen is good at swordsmanship. Like senior sister Anne, he is a skill-oriented type. When encountering such unreasonable large-scale killing methods, he will naturally be defeated. It can only be said that the draw is unfavorable, not the fault of war. After a while, Yan Zichua finally seized the opportunity and recited aloud. If you work hard, you'll definitely have. The ultimate move was only halfway chanted when Yuan Chenyu suddenly wrapped in sword light, and his body and sword became one, directly piercing the chest of Yan Zichua, who was caught off guard. The so-called timing to release the ultimate move was actually just a flaw that Yuan Chenyu deliberately revealed. Today's competition ended here, and everyone dispersed. Yuan Chenyu returned to the crowd and said with a smile, 3 people from Shushan will advance in the end, right? Senior sister Anne, junior brother Lim and Ju. Lin Yulanzhen replied, and Qiu Changtian, Zhu Yinglyan and Luoyan. Senior sister Yuan, it seems that you are the weakest at the moment. Julanfen Hai laughed. It's okay. Yuan Chenyu was very free and easy, no matter how weak you are still the 6th. Julanfen Hai didn't care and just laughed. Everyone was talking and laughing, and saw that 12 streams of swords shot out from the distance again, rushing towards this side. Ling Yunpo reached out and grabbed a sword, and saw the 3 words Zhu Yinglyan written on it. Another round of exclamations came, and the list of tomorrow's matchups had already appeared on the Jade list of Baiyuzheng Square. Top 6. Qiu Changtian vs. Yuan Chenyu. Ling Yunpo vs. Zhu Yinglyan. Zisu vs. Luoyan. Bottom 6. Lin Yulanzhen vs. Shiluli. Yuan Zhen vs. Bashan. Julanfen Hai vs. Yan Zichua. Ha ha ha. Julanfen Hai laughed. It seems that senior sister Yuan will not be in the top 3. You are lucky, you have already won tomorrow, right? Yuan Chenyu said unhappily. Everyone laughed, and their moods were different. Now everyone can see that the 3 weakest among the top 12 are Yuanzhen, Shiluli and Yan Zichua. Lin Yulanzhen, Julanfen Hai and Bashan were very lucky not to draw the internal fighting lot. After defeating these 3 people, they can probably get the 7th to 9th place. If the bottom 6 of the Heaven group, then the top 6 of the real Hell group. Yuan Chenyu drew Qiu Changtian, which was declared dead in advance. Zisu drew Luoyan, and it seems that the acquired 5 elements divine luck can no longer be hidden. Ling Yunpo drew Zhu Yinglyan. Sorry, junior sister Zhu, I won't let you go. After making a detailed plan in his mind, Ling Yunpo and the Shushan people left the Baiyuzheng secret realm and flew towards the base in the direction of Tianmu Mountain. As a result, in front of the thatched cottage, Shiluli was seen standing at the door again, seemingly waiting for someone. Seeing Shiluli's figure, Zisu's face was immediately covered with frost, and the temperature around them seemed to drop several degrees suddenly, so that Lin Yulanzhen and others unconsciously hurried away. Before Ling Yunpo could speak, Miss Shi rushed forward and said angrily, "Are you letting me win in today's competition?" This, Ling Yunpo was stuck, and saw Nzisu beside him suddenly laughed. Fellow Daoichi, how do you know that my junior brother is letting you in? Although her tone was gentle, Ling Yunpo could sense the anger in it, as if it was as cold as ice and made people shudder. Whether fellow Daoist Ling will give in or not is in front of everyone, so I don't think you need to analyze or judge. Shirley didn't know why, but he became sharp-tongued when facing the awe-inspiring Nzisu. I came here just to say that although my skills are not as good as yours, I fought fairly. Why should I be played with by you like this? The Shushan sect is known for its swordsmanship. My victory over fellow Daoist Ling cannot prove anything. Doing such frivolous and disrespectful things during the competition between the righteous sects will only make the world laugh at you. Now everyone in Shushan finally understood. It turned out that Shirley regarded Ling Yunpo's courtesy during the fight today as some kind of master's teasing and mockery of a rookie. Hey, fellow Daoichi, you misunderstood. Ling Yunpo had just said one sentence when he heard Nzisu's cold voice. Okay, tomorrow I will compete with your Penglai Luoyan, you tell him to prepare well. If I let him lose even a little bit to my sword in the competition, I will not be named Dan. If you don't have the surname An, you can still take your father's surname Su, Ling Yunpo thought subconsciously, and then suddenly reacted. Wait, she told Luoyan to prepare well, right? Oops, my future self, doomed. Chapter 440 Junior Sister, you actually hide it from me, Shirley left in a huff. Nzisu's face was cold, and she was obviously unhappy. Lin Yulanzan and others were also very tactful and hurriedly said goodbye and went back to the house. Ling Yunpo thought about it and felt that he couldn't just sit there and watch Luoyan suffer. After all, no matter how miserable Luoyan was tomorrow, it would be his turn in the end. Senior Sister Anne. Ling Yunpo persuaded her, don't be angry with Shirley. Why can't I be angry with her? Nzisu said angrily, you clearly told her not to lose too badly, but she didn't appreciate it and blamed you for being frivolous and disrespectful. How can this be possible in this world? Oh. Ling Yunpo was also very troubled. The main reason was that Miss Shi really judged me by her own standards. Shirley's personality is so willful, he had just said half of the sentence when Nzisu suddenly stared at him and said in a strange tone, Junior brother, why did you say her temper is like this? And from your tone, it seems that you're very familiar with her. Ling Yunpo. Oops, too much talk will lead to mistakes. He looked slightly surprised, then smiled and said, Sister, do you remember the purple star sand that Shirley activated during the competition today? Of course I remember. Nzisu looked at him dimly, as if to say keep making it up. It's like this. Ling Yunpo said gently, in my opinion, although Senior Sister has superb swordsmanship, if she faces Qiu Chain times 5 Thunder's righteous law and Zhu Yingyan's great light flame, she will still be a little weak if she relies solely on the flying sword. Today, when I saw Shirley's Star Sand magic weapon, I felt happy. I wanted to get a similar large-scale magic weapon for Senior Sister for self-defense. Well, I made some inquiries and found out that Shirley's father is the elder of the Tiangong workshop of Penglai King Temple, and the Tiangong workshop is good at making tools. If we can make friends with them, maybe we can get a handy magic weapon for Senior Sister. Seeing that Nzisu's face was not right, Ling Yunpo quickly added, of course, it's not to make friends with Shirley, but Luoyan. Luoyan? Nzisu asked puzzled. Yes, it is Luoyan. Ling Yunpo persuaded, Sister, do you know that Luoyan has the magic weapon Tiangong by Bahu Bag? What does this mean? What does it mean? Nzisu was completely carried away by his thoughts, and couldn't help but ask curiously. It means that he is the future successor of Tiangong Fang. Ling Yunpo talked freely, as long as we can make friends with Luoyan, it will be easy to get the magic weapon. Junior brother, you are thoughtful. Nzisu was a little moved, Sister, I don't actually need any magic weapon, Sister. Seeing that it was finally done, Ling Yunpo immediately persuaded while the iron was hot, that's why I showed mercy in the competition today, probably because Shirley is Luoyan's sister. If Shirley is beaten too badly, it will be a loss of face for Luoyan, and what good will it do us? As long as we can win the competition, it doesn't matter if we give up 3 points in the competition. Senior Sister, don't you think so? Well, it's true. Nzisu was a little happy. It turns out that Junior brother is not trying to get close to Shirley, but for me, Senior Sister, you should rest early. I'm going to breathe. Ling Yunpo did not continue to pursue, so as not to overdo it, and climbed onto the bed to start breathing and refining Qi. Nzisu looked at Ling Yunpo's profile and was a little stunned for a while. Alas, Junior brother still misses me in his heart. She sighed in her heart, and then climbed onto the bed, sat cross-legged next to Ling Yunpo, and slowly entered into meditation. The next day, Ling Yunpo and Zisu left the thatched cottage and followed everyone into the Baiyuzheng secret realm. Except for a small number of cultivators who were practicing in the nearby pavilions, most people had gathered at the Baiyuzheng Square, waiting to watch the first competition, that is, Qiu Changtai versus Yuan Chenyu. Although the reasons were different, the two senior sisters and brothers did not want to watch Qiu Changtai's battle, so they ran to practice nearby. Since senior sister was in a good mood, the two did not exchange injuries like yesterday, but just practiced swordsmanship and warmed up. Qiu Changtai seemed to be as fierce as ever. Not long after, senior sister An's sword flew out of her hand. "It's my turn." Zisu stood up and left. Ling Yunpo followed immediately. After senior sister and Luoyan were off the court, he thought for a moment and decided not to watch the game. Lest he observe how Luoyan fights the enemy, he would have to follow the script again in the future when he plays Luoyan. He leaned over and asked Yuan Chenyu, "Senior sister Yuan, how was the result of the last match?" "That Qiu Changtai is really hard to deal with." Yuan Chenyu sighed and said, "I'm afraid your senior sister is not his opponent." "Well, don't tell her that I said that." "Oh," Yuan Chenyu lost. This was also within Ling Yunpo's expectations, so he sighed and said to Lin Yulanzhen and others, "Then Luoyan can't be a match for senior sister An, I won't watch it anymore. I need to adjust my state and prepare to fight against Zhu Yingluoyan in the next match." After that, he flew away directly on his sword. Arriving at the first pavilion, there were already a few monks practicing and sparring inside. It can be seen that this Baiyuzheng competition has really helped to promote the martial spirit of the three pure ones of the Orthodox Church. Ling Yunpo ignored them and just found a corner of the stand to be in a daze. He began to review the fighting style of junior sisters Yu in his mind. To be honest, what the Shushan Sword Immortal fears most is the wide-area Taoist method of the Great Bright Fire. When it comes all over the place, you don't know where to shoot the flying sword. However, Ling Yunpo didn't know how many times he had fought with Zhu Yingluoyan, and he naturally knew the weaknesses and restrained methods of the Great Bright Fire. The only thing to be careful about is whether junior sisters Yu will have any trump cards that even senior brother doesn't know about, waiting to make a final decision in the competition. Ling Yunpo thought for a long time, until the sword in his hand flashed. He came back to his senses. "Forget it, secretly hiding a trump card. I believe junior sisters Yu will definitely not do such a hypocritical thing." Ling Yunpo flew up his flying sword and quickly rushed to the Baiyuzheng Square, but only saw that Zhu Yingluoyan was not there. Lin Yulanzhen and others were smiling and talking to Zisu outside the venue. Senior sister An listened absent-mindedly and nodded tiredly at herself, as if the victory was not easy. "TSK, after all, Luoyan is only 1/5 of my strength. It is normal that he cannot beat senior sister An." So Ling Yunpo landed first and closed his eyes to rest. After about a dozen breaths, I saw the fairy in white clothes coming from a distance and landing gracefully on the ground. I have to say that although senior sister is stronger, Zhu Yingluoyan's appearance is more impressive. White clothes and plain skirt, flying fairy from the sky. I don't know who she learned this pretentious appearance from. Ling Yunpo turned his mind and saluted with his fists. Zhu Yingluoyan did not speak, but just bowed in return. Such a coldness was also expected by Ling Yunpo. So after he saluted, he threw out the Kingping sword directly. Man and sword become one. The sword light of Kingping surged several feet, and shot towards Zhu Yingluoyan like a meteor, passing through her chest before she could react. Not right. Ling Yunpo suddenly realized that the sense of the blow was obviously wrong. How could the size of the junior sister be so thin? Well, junior sisters you actually hit a trump card. As soon as the thought came up, Zhu Yingluoyan's figure collapsed and turned into a large ball of scattered flames. Just behind him, Zhu Yingluoyan appeared again in the flames, and he had already made up his mind. Floating in the 9 mornings, shining thousands of feet. The great light fire, with overwhelming power, came over. Chapter 441. A return with junior sister Zhu. The great bright fire burned the mountains and boiled the sea, covering the sky and the sun. The rolling heat waves rushed towards them, causing the surrounding monks to change their faces. Even the robes of several monks who were a little closer were ignited by sparks. Seeing the burning sea of fire, the onlookers had to retreat 20 feet away on their swords and continue to watch the competition from a distance. Ling Yunpo faced the great bright fire directly, but his face did not change. He just raised his sword with one hand and chanted the spell. The mist is ethereal, and the smoke is floating like a mirage. I saw the fog rising rapidly, and it was stimulated by the heat waves of the great bright fire. A large area of white gas immediately rose, like boiling water in boiling soup. Zhu Yingyuan continued to watch her true essence, knowing that the Shushan sword immortal could not compete with her in this regard, especially since she had also practiced the 9 heavens pure and subtle entry true words, and her abundant true essence was beyond the reach of ordinary monks. The opponent must have used Taoism to temporarily resist the great bright fire, and then sent a killing move to the unity of man and sword, waiting for an opportunity to snipe me directly from the fire. How could I fall for such a cheap trick? She sneered in her heart, and her hands had already formed the Dao formula again. This technique was learned from the ancient ancestor Feng Tong in the last time in the secret realm of Guanming Palace. It is called 9 numbers of fire escape. As long as there is a flame in the range of the spell, even a tiny spark, she can teleport her body to the location of the flame, and at the same time generate a fire illusion to stay in the original position. It is a very mysterious and rare method, and only those with phoenix blood can learn it. Since the illusion looks almost seamless, it is perfect for dodging attacks. Zhu Yingyuan, who is as smart as a mind, can even launch an attack immediately after teleporting, forming an excellent dodge counter-attack routine that is almost impossible to deal with. Originally, she planned to prepare to deal with her senior brother in the finals, but she saw that Ling Yunpo and Zisu were not easy to defeat, so she took it out in advance to prepare for merit. As her mind was slowly turning, Zhu Yingyuan suddenly found that the momentum of the great light fire was weakening. The opponent's Taoism has spread out. Wherever the fog passes, the sea of fire is immediately suppressed, and the light and heat are almost reduced by more than half. What kind of Taoism is this? The rank is so high that it can suppress my great light fire. Zhu Yingyuan was shocked and quickly pinched the spell in his hand. The sword light of the unity of man and sword penetrated her body, and then her body turned into flames and dissipated. Zhu Yingyuan flashed on the other side of the sea of fire, and saw that the white fog was not endless, but always maintained beside King Ping's sword light. So that's it. This is not Taoism, but the method of sealing on his sword, so not only is the range limited, but it can't be maintained without the immortal sword. Considering that the consumption of true energy to activate the Taoism on the sword is much higher than that of activating the Taoism learned by oneself, you only need to deliberately avoid fighting, delay time, and persist until his true energy is exhausted, and you can win. But, how can I, Zhu Yingyuan, use such a rogue method for victory? Thinking of this, Zhu Yingyuan summoned the Yujie sword and attacked Ling Yunpo brazenly. Ling Yunpo was also shocked. Great. Your swordsmanship is not as exquisite as mine, and you can't achieve the unity of man and sword, but you dare to charge directly at me. You are worthy of being you, tired as Zhu Shijie. He also watched the sword light to meet it, and saw Zhu Yingyuan approaching rapidly, and suddenly spit out a very thin and bright golden line from his mouth. Red feather 9 phoenix fire. Although this fire line is only as thick as a fingernail, it is formed by Zhu Yingyuan's continuous compression of the fire essence in the meridians for 9 turns. Its single unit lethality is extremely terrifying. Even though it is weakened by half by the Baiwai of the King Ping sword, its brightness is still not much inferior. Ling Yunpo was so frightened that his soul was scared, and he didn't even have time to turn the sword light. He could only quickly cancel the unity of man and sword and perform the dividing cloud backward step. As his body shook rapidly, he flashed across the fire line by a millimeter. The fire line did not hit Ling Yunpo, but swept across the railing of Baiyuzheng Square behind him. The jade railing was cut neatly like a piece of tofu, and the crack was a melted golden red, and it was still slowly deforming and collapsing. The golden fire line continued to sweep across several monks who were unable to dodge in the distance. Those monks were caught off guard and cut in half, and then resurrected by the secret realm mechanism. After they calmed down, they dared not stay where they were, and immediately fled on their swords, not even watching the game. The other monks watching were also stunned. What kind of Taoist magic is this golden line? The attack range is extremely long, the speed is also extremely fast, and the lethality is even greater. It can even cut the railing of Baiyuzheng Square. You must know that this Baiyuzheng Square has also held many competitions in recent days, but it has never been damaged by the Taoist magic in the competition. In a panic, everyone had to fly their swords again to distance themselves, and retreated to a distance of 50 feet. At the same time, they pinched the sword formula in their hands, ready to run away at any time if the situation was not good. Ling Yunpo also looked solemn, knowing that the Phoenix secret method that Sisters Yu obtained from the ancient ancestor Feng Tong in the last time in the secret realm of Guangming Palace seemed to have improved her combat effectiveness beyond his expectations. Well, in this case, I won't let her go. His expression was extremely serious, and he pinched the sword formula and pulled out the Thunder Sword and the 10,000 Bamboo Sword. 3 flying swords, the Kingpin Sword on the right, the Thunder Sword on the left, and the 10,000 Bamboo Sword hanging above the head. The black, white, and blue colors complemented each other, and there was a stern murderous intent. Zhu Yingyan was not afraid at all, and turned his head and spit out flames again. This time it was not the golden thread, but a new great light fire, which pressed towards Ling Yunpo. Ling Yunpo exclaimed. Although this great light fire has a wide range, its lethality is not as good as that of the Red Feather 9 Phoenix fire. It was weakened by half by my use of the green mist and Kangle Yuan, and there was no threat at all. Why is Junior Sister still using this trick? When the sea of fire rose again, causing Zhu Yingyan's figure to disappear, Ling Yunpo secretly cried out. So that's it. This great light fire is not to attack me, but to emit a large amount of light and heat waves to cover her body position. As his thoughts turned, he saw another golden line suddenly shot out from the sea of fire. Its angle was tricky and its speed was so fast that Ling Yunpo broke out in a cold sweat. Fortunately, he and Zisu had practiced against each other for many years, and his reaction speed had been honed. He quickly dodged with a dividing cloud back a step and manipulated the Kingpin Sword to shoot at the place where the golden line came from. The Kingpin Sword penetrated the sea of fire, but it did not feel like it hit the target. It seemed that Junior Sister had escaped through that strange method again. Thinking of this, he saw another golden line shooting, but this time it changed to another direction. Ling Yunpo quickly flashed again, dodging the golden line sweep. At this time, the Kingpin Sword was too late to pull back, so he used the Li sword to shoot at the opponent. Of course, it was another miss. Sister Zhu was in this sea of fire, using the fire escape method to come and go freely, and using the Red Feather 9 Phoenix fire to always pose a great threat to me, so the rhythm of the battlefield could not be controlled by me. If you want to defeat her, you must use a larger range of Taoist methods to suppress the entire sea of fire on the battlefield first. Thinking of this, Ling Yunpo pinched the Taoist formula again and activated the third Taoist method of the Kingpin Sword North Wind Rolling White Feather, chanting the mantra. 3 feet of deep ice, 1,000 miles of white feathers. Suddenly, frost condensed in the air, and in an instant it turned into heavy snow, covering the entire sea of fire and even the Baiyujing Square. Each snowflake was a water-based sword energy, which fell on the blazing bright fire and immediately annihilated each other, each retreating a section. Another new water-based Taoist method. Zhu Yingyan hid deep in the sea of fire, feeling something was wrong. He had used the flying sword to seal 2 consecutive wide-area Taoist techniques. Where did this guy get so much Taoist essence? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Mundo Fanfic Novelers, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelers. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 442. Watch out, this is how the trump card is played. Snow flew all over the sky, and the sea of fire rolled over the ground. In the huge Baiyujing Square, a fierce conflict between water and fire was formed. Many monks watched from afar, and they were also amazed. Logically speaking, this kind of competition of Taoism often occurs in the civil war of Kunlun monks. Because the consumption of true essence by wide-area Taoism is too great, whether it is the sword immortals of Shushan who use flying swords or the monks of Penglai who use magic weapons, they can't bear the consumption for too long. In fact, even Kunlun monks rarely use this method to stalemate. I didn't expect it to happen in the competition between Ling Yunpo and Zhu Yingyan. Zhu Yingyan is an elite disciple of Kunlun, and he has practiced 9 Heavens Kingwei realm mantra, so it's not surprising that his true essence is vigorous. But Ling Yunpo is obviously a disciple of Shushan, so where does he get so much true essence? Ling Yunpo also knows that it's not good. If the tug-of-war continues like this, I'm afraid that Sister Zhu will be exhausted of her true essence. It's outrageous. You, a Shushan swordsman who is good at quick battles, wore down the Kumlinki refining master who is famous for his abundant true essence. Is this reasonable? Winning the competition but exposing your flaws, is this worth it? Thinking of this, Ling Yunpo immediately decided to change his tactics. Since we can't fight a protracted war, we must fight quickly. There is no way to quickly suppress the great bright fire, so we can only ignore the sea of fire and kill Zhu Ying directly. Thinking of this, Ling Yunpo said in a deep voice, "A Jin, help me scan." "There." Come, Lin Jing said indifferently. Ling Yunpo looked carefully and saw Zhu Ying who was performing the red feather 9 phoenix fire in the heavy sea of fire that rose again. He performed the dividing cloud back a step again, nimbly dodged the golden line sweep, and at the same time scattered the Kingping, Lady Li, and Wangzhu swords throughout the field, and began to move quickly. The Wangzhu sword suddenly struck down, passing through Zhu Yingyan's body. Sister Zhu, who had been prepared, cast a spell, and her body immediately turned into flames and collapsed. She flashed to another location in the sea of fire again. She was about to activate the red feather 9 phoenix fire again, only to see the thunder sword suddenly slash down from the air, aiming at her crown. Zhu Yingyan was so shocked that she didn't have time to activate the fire escape spell. She temporarily summoned the Yujie sword to block the attack, but she was confused. "No. I didn't spit out the red feather 9 phoenix fire at all. How could he determine my range in the sea of fire in advance?" There was another low explosion, but it was Ling Yunpo mobilizing the north wind rolling white feather Taoist method, shooting the flying snow sword energy towards her position. Zhu Yingyan had to pinch the Taoist formula again and cast the fire escape technique to leave her original position. Just as she was teleported to another place, she saw the Kingping sword slash down again, and the direction was exactly right. It was exactly where she was standing. "This guy, it's not that he's lucky, but he can actually see me in the sea of fire." Zhu Yingyan gnashed her teeth in anger. In this way, the tactic of using the great light fire to cover the body is completely ruined, right? By the way, I remember that my senior brother was also like this at the beginning. I don't know why he could lock my body from the sea of fire, even though my great light fire can even block my consciousness. Damn dog senior brother, even if he defeated me, at least let me understand why I lost. Zhu Yingyan pinched the fire escape again and escaped from the attack of Kingping sword and Fishu sword key. Flashing to the edge of Baiyuzheng Square, she quickly looked, but saw that Ling Yunpo's figure was no longer in her field of vision. Zhu Yingyan's face changed drastically, and she saw that Ling Yunpo had already used the dividing cloud 8 diagram step to flash in front of her, and the Kingping sword slashed down at her. She hurriedly blocked with the Yujie sword, and was about to pinch the Dojo in her hand to escape with the fire escape, but she saw the thunder sword quickly sneak attack from the left. The speed of the gold sword was so fast that it was too late to activate the fire escape, otherwise she would be stacked by the sword in advance. At this time, Yu Jian was entangled by Kingping sword and could not get away at all. She only had a wood sword Kangua that she usually used for sword control, and she had to pull it out to block it. Zhu Yingyan did not know how to use two-handed sword control. She was distracted and could only barely resist the stab of the thunder sword. When she was about to pinch the Dojo in her hand, she suddenly felt a sharp pain in her back. The Wangzhu sword had pierced her chest. Zhu Yingyan. Didn't they say that the two-handed sword control of Shushan disciples can only control 2 swords at the same time? Why can this person use 3 swords to attack back and forth without any hindrance in the process? Her figure disappeared instantly, and then resurrected and reappeared in the same place. At this time, the great light fire on the square had completely dissipated. Zhu Yingyan stood there, his face intertwined with various complex emotions such as disbelief, confusion, regret, unwillingness, loss, frustration, and resentment. Fortunately, as a senior brother, he had been with junior sisters Yu day and night for so many years, and was very familiar with her personality and thinking mode, so he could recognize these subtle emotions one by one. In short, junior sisters Yu is very unhappy now. Ling Yunpo cast his eyes outside the field, his eyes swept across Qiu Changtian's figure without stopping. The task of comforting junior sister is left to you, my future self. Senior sister. Ling Yunpo flew off the field directly on his sword and came to Nzisu, who was watching the game from a distance. Congratulations, junior brother Ling. Lin Julanzan and others came over to congratulate him. Junior brother Ling has made it to the top 3, bringing honor to our Shushan disciples. No, it was just luck. Ling Yunpo said modestly, only to hear Juan Fanhai impatiently ask. Junior brother Lin, you used 2 swords to entangle the opponent's 2 swords in the end, and the 3rd sword defeated Zhu Yingyan. Is this the legendary method of controlling 3 swords at the same time and incarnating outside the body? Ha ha ha. This, Ling Yunpo was about to make a joke and try to fool him, but Zhu Yingyan suddenly flew in front of everyone on a sword. Zisu immediately blocked Ling Yunpo, fearing that this phoenix fairy would harm his junior brother. Fortunately, Zhu Yinglyan was Qiu Changtian's Taoist partner after all, so senior sister did not have obvious hostility towards her, but was mostly on guard. Good swordsmanship, good strategy. Zhu Yinglyan said coldly, I am convinced of this defeat. But with the strength of you and your senior sister, neither of you can be the opponent of my senior brother. Whether we are opponents or not, we will know after fighting. Zisu said unhappily. Not bad. Zhu Yinglyan smiled faintly, I am looking forward to the battle between you and my senior brother, no matter who it is. After that, she turned the sword light and flew towards Qiu Changtian. What does she mean by this? Lin Yulanzhen said with a sneer, is it because she is unwilling to lose, so she came here to say a few harsh words to save face? I don't think so. Yuan Zhenu thought, it's a kind of I am afraid you will underestimate Qiu Changtian and not be fully prepared. Are you thinking too much? Zisu frowned and said, why didn't I see it? No, she is just such a strong character, Ling Yunpo complained in his heart. With your emotional intelligence, it's normal that you didn't see it. Chapter 443. Senior sister was plotted against. With Ling Yunpo's victory over Zhu Yinglyan, the first to third place in the Baiyuzheng competition will be decided from Qiu Changtian, Zisu and Ling Yunpo. However, the way to decide is not a 2-on-2 battle, but a draw. Two of them will compete, and the other will be a bye. After the competition, the winner will compete with the bye. If there are consecutive wins, the winner will be the first, and the bye will compete with the loser of the previous round to determine the ranking. If the bye wins, the bye will be the first, the winner of the previous round will be second, and the loser will be third. This competition rule undoubtedly gives the bye the greatest advantage. First, he can rest and have more time to adjust his state, while the remaining two have to fight one more game. Secondly, he can peek into more information and intelligence from the battle of the remaining two. Although it sounds unfair, if we don't use this kind of lottery rule and let the three people compete in pairs, there will be more troublesome problems. If A beats B, B beats C, and C beats A. Again, how should the top 3 seats be allocated? In short, since the rule is to draw lots, the 12 people from Baiyuzheng can only try their best to draw. Ling Yunpo even saw Mishi closing her eyes again, muttering to herself, as if she was starting to do something. If I remember correctly, after these 2 rounds of competition, the 4th to 6th are Zhu Yinglyan, Yuan Zhenu and Luoyan, the 7th to 9th are Lin Yulanzhen, Julanfen Haiyan Guanzhen, and the 10th to 12th are Xiaoluli, Yanzichu and Bishan. Junior brother Yan is also a homebody who rarely goes out of the mountain gate and has almost no experience in fighting. If Mishi can use her good luck, the probability of winning is not small. But Bishan is proficient in swordsmanship, and Xiaoluli has no chance of winning, unless she has some incredible luck, such as Bishan's poor performance that day, a stomachache, or a demonic obsession. There is no possibility that she will lose to Mishi. At noon, another 12 swords were shot out from the Jade list in Baiyuzheng Square. Everyone reached out to intercept the swords that passed by them. Ling Yunpo took a closer look and saw that the words written on the swords were in Zisu. Well, Qiu Changtian has a bye, and the competition is over. There is no need to fight anymore. This. Lin Yulanzhen and others were speechless when they saw the result in his hand. Qiu Changtian was already difficult to deal with, but before we beat him, we had to fight a battle inside Shushan. There must be something shady about this draw. Julanfen Haiyan, who was born in the martial arts world, was immediately angry. This magic weapon on the sword immortal ranking was provided by Shushan. Kunlun's Hinran, who was guarding the Jade ranking, said calmly, and it has been jointly checked and confirmed by the 3 sects. If you have any questions, you can consult your headmaster. Julanfen Haiyan sneered a few times and did not answer. If there is no clear evidence, it would be tantamount to humiliating oneself to go to the headmaster of Yuzheng. But in the first 3 miles, Shushan clearly hit 2 people, but the draw happened to be a civil war among the same sect. How can this 1/3 probability be convincing? Okay, junior brother Julan. Zisu put away the sword with the sign marked Ling Yunpo and sighed. In fact, there is another way. Before she finished speaking, she saw Ling Yunpo throwing the sword into the Jade ranking and said, tomorrow's competition, I admit defeat in advance. Junior brother. Zisu was immediately shocked. She wanted to give up herself so that she could give the opportunity to participate in the final to her junior brother, but she didn't expect Ling Yunpo to take the lead, see through her thoughts, and give up directly. You want to give up? Asked Kunlun's Hinran in surprise. Well, it's your Shushan's own business anyway. Ling Yunpo turned around and said with a smile. Senior sister, don't worry about me. If we play against Qiu Chain Tian, your chance of winning is obviously much greater than mine. Junior brother, Zisu said weakly. If Ling Yunpo just wanted to give up, she would definitely use her dignity as a senior sister and not allow her junior brother to give up just like that. But Ling Yunpo threw away the sword directly. There was no way to repent, and she could only grit her teeth secretly and decided not to let her junior brother down. In the final, she must use all her strength to chop Qiu Chain Tian to death. Ling Yunpo didn't know Zisu's thoughts, and just said goodbye to everyone. Lin Julanzan felt a little regretful. Julanzan Hai couldn't help sighing, and only Yuan Chinu smiled and showed a teasing look. You still say that there is no private relationship between you and your senior sister? After leaving the Bayujing secret realm and returning to the thatched cottage, Zisu was about to speak when Ling Yunpo held her hands and said sternly, "Sister, why are you acting like a little girl? In my opinion, it doesn't matter who wins or loses between me and you, no matter who is second or third, don't they all fall to our King Luo Peak lineage?" But, Zisu hesitated. Besides, if we fight before we face Qiu Chain Tian, it would be a pity to waste our energy and affect our condition, and even miss the chance to win the finals. Ling Yunpo laughed. If you still feel that you are not fair to me, then can you agree to one of my requests? What request? Zisu asked softly. I should take the top spot for him. I just hope that senior sister doesn't care too much about the top spot. Ling Yunpo said with a smile, others value honor, but I am worried that a tree that stands out in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. Zisu was silent for a moment, and said, Alas, I have thought about what you are worried about. It's just that Master once said that to be a sword fairy, one must strive to be the first. She said a lot of rambling. In short, Su Jian taught her to fight hard, and Ling Yunpo was overwhelmed. Ling Yunpo couldn't say Master is wrong, you'll listen to me, because he knew that senior sister would definitely not agree. All I can say is, Zisu was such a good girl, how could you be raised astray by Su Jian? Zisu went into a state of meditation, and Ling Yunpo also closed his eyes and said to Kunlun Mirror, Ajin, load the save. Load now? Kunlun Mirror asked in surprise. Yeah, what else? Ling Yunpo asked helplessly, if I don't reload the save now, I will definitely have to watch the competition between senior sister and Qiu Chain Tian on the day of the finals. I can't find an excuse to miss it. After I've seen Qiu Chain Tian's fighting style, and then when I play as Qiu Chain Tian, I have to repeat it exactly according to the script. Isn't it tiring? It's better to play as Qiu Chain Tian first and finish all the games, and then Ling Yunpo can just watch the games later. I see. Kunlun Jing understood, then reload the save as Qiu Chain Tian. No, leave Qiu Chain Tian for last, and reload Luoyan first. Ling Yunpo said with a smile, first get the benefits given by Penglai King Temple and enhance your own strength. In this way, when you compete with senior sister and as Qiu Chain Tian in the end, your chances of winning will be greater. Kunlun Jing. Okay, first play as Ling Yunpo to dissolve Zisu's fighting spirit, then play as Luoyan to deceive the sect for benefits to enhance your strength, and finally play as Qiu Chain Tian to beat Zisu up, right? Maybe after the fight you will have to dress up as Ling Yunpo again to comfort the defeated senior sister and win her favor. Chapter 444. It's time for Mishi to repay her kindness. Point 3. Penglai King Temple, Tiangong Workshop. Character Identity. Luoyan. Mirror Flower Water Moon Temple covered, currently traveling through time and space. The time point on Luoyan's side is still before the start of the Bayujing competition. The 7 people who are highly expected by King Temple, known as the 7 Sons of Penglai in the temple, are busy training and strengthening every day. The Chuandu sect master still comes to inspect every now and then, calling each person to teach individually in turn, mainly using the experience and wisdom of high-level cultivators to point out the shortcomings of their tactics. Compared with the mysticist sect master of Kunlun Ziwei and the majestic and self-conceited sect master of Shushan Yuxing, the Yu King Temple master is not very arrogant, and his attitude when speaking is that of a kind senior master, rather than a serious superior. It's just that his skill in getting excited is really amazing. Luoyan has heard him say more than once in private, in this competition, the one I have the highest hopes for is you, Luoyan. At the time, he was a little touched and guilty. After all, he did not try his best in the future competition, and finally fell to the 4th to 6th place. As a result, when Chiluni came back and said it, he realized that this old man had said this to everyone, and it was indeed a word of encouragement. As the day of the competition approached, Miss became more and more nervous, fearing that she would be eliminated in the first round, and she would not even be able to win to the top 12 of Bayujing, and she would embarrass Elder Shiding when she came back. Luo Yan, who already knew the future, was full of confidence and cheerleadery. Apart from anything else, just relying on your unreasonable luck, as long as you keep getting buys and promotions, you can easily advance to the top 12. Of course, the upper limit of luck is here. After all, the top 12 is full of monsters and perverts. No matter who you draw, you can't beat them. Don't think too much, being able to win to the top 12 is a victory. Shilli naturally didn't know, but just pulled Luo Yan to practice swordsmanship constantly. The reason was that the head of Kwandu repeatedly reminded her, your swordsmanship is a shortcoming. To be more specific, Miss Shi's purple extreme Han Yuan sword is of a high rank, and she also has a wide area Taoist method such as the secret art of the Southern Dipper Galaxy, as well as a magic weapon that combines offense and defenses such as the Tui Gao Chenyo Pokesengsha, so her strength in all aspects is indeed not weak. The only concern is that she lacks experience in fighting. If the opponent raises his hand and attacks with swordsmanship, she will not even have the opportunity to release the Taoist method and activate the magic weapon under high pressure, which means that all the above advantages have become invisible and she can only be slaughtered. You must know that among all the methods, swordsmanship is the fastest. Whether you are the king of magic weapons or the king of Taoism, at least you can't be too weak in swordsmanship, otherwise, just when you start to pinch the sword formula and stir up your true essence, the opponent's flying sword will directly poke your forehead, and then you'll be completely defeated. What else can you say? Junior brother. Miss Shi was tired of practicing, so she sat down next to Luo Yan during the break, holding his arm skillfully, with a twinkle in her eyes. Is there any way? Her action was so familiar that Luo Yan knew what Miss Shi meant instantly. What she wanted to ask must be, is there any way to quickly master swordsmanship? And as long as Luo Yan said no, his arm would be clamped by Xiangmen's thing, and then swung left and right, twisting and turning, and chanting just help me 3 times, which was really a special attack on men, with great lethality. Although Luo Yan had not figured out whether Miss Shi really had feelings for him or was born a green tea without knowing it, this most crucial point did not stop him from making a skillful response. First, he quietly pulled his arm out of Shilli's arms, and then Luo Yan smiled slowly. Sister, you want to improve your swordsmanship, but you come to me for help. Isn't that like looking for fish in a tree? My swordsmanship is not strong either. What do you mean? Shilli blinked, and subconsciously concluded that Luo Yan must be trying to fool him again, so he grabbed his arm again and prepared to start chanting. Unexpectedly, Luo Yan suddenly asked, where did you get this sword, sister? Of course, it was from the last Kuakong Mountain secret realm, Shilli just said half a sentence, and suddenly woke up. The Kuakong Mountain secret realm is a typical inherited secret realm, in which there are 3 Taoist traditions left by ancient immortals. Among them, the Huayan Damao Temple exists specifically for teaching swordsmanship. Instead of practicing blindly with junior brothers and others here, why not go to Huayan Damao Temple to receive guidance from the immortal? That's an immortal. Even if the head of Kwandu is here, he dare not say that his guidance is definitely better than that of the immortal. Thinking of this, Miss Shi immediately made up her mind. Go to the secret realm of Kuakong Mountain to sprint a wave of swordsmanship. Of course, you have to bring Brother Luo with you. Luo Yan was dragged away by her without explanation, and he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Shilli is indeed the typical no sense of propriety lady. She is unscrupulous when making requests, but never hesitates when giving benefits. It really makes people sigh wherein the world is such a precious thing. You know, although it was Luo Yan who proposed to take her to find the secret realm of Kuakong Mountain, she was the only one who found the entrance to the secret realm in the end. According to the unwritten rules of the cultivation world, this secret realm belongs to Miss Shi alone. However, considering that it was Luo Yan who provided the clues after all, Luo Yan needed to be given some additional compensation and benefits. It could be actual cultivation materials, or the information about the entrance to the secret realm could be shared with him, but it must not be given. Otherwise, who will take you to play in the future? It has been so long since she remembered to take him to the secret realm, which shows that in Miss Shi's mind, there is no concept of reciprocity at all. Thinking in this way, after the crisis of 100,000 gods and demons attacking Penglai ended, Elder Shiding gave me the Tiangong treasure bag. On the one hand, it might be a disguised compensation, and on the other hand, it was probably because he saw through his daughter's innocent character, and without Luo Yan's care, she would inevitably be in trouble. There is nothing to say, I can only be moved. In the future Biushing competition, I must repay Miss Shi well. The two of them flew all the way, left Penglai Island, and came to the vicinity of Kuakong Mountain along the coast of the East China Sea. Compared with the last visit many years ago, Kuakong Mountain is now more populated. Pilgrims in groups of 3 or 2 stay temporarily in Jinun Temple, burn incense, and even go for an outing nearby. The mountains are bustling everywhere. Luoyan and Shilili rushed to the sky above Ruin Land Pavilion, and saw several young masters sitting in the pavilion, cooking wine and reciting poems, and maids and servants were waiting around. Seeing the 2 people falling from the sky, the maids and servants were so scared that they all prostrated themselves on the ground. Several young masters looked at each other, and suddenly came to their senses, and prostrated themselves one after another, saying excitedly, "Greetings to the immortals." The reason is simple. In the coastal areas of Yangzhou, the existence of Penglai King Temple is not a secret. Many wealthy families would consider sending their children to Penglai to try their luck with immortals. At this time, seeing the 2 people stepping on swords, several young masters from wealthy families immediately recognized them as Penglai monks and were overjoyed. Luoyan was too lazy to talk nonsense with them, just threw down a pure bottle and said, "We borrow this place, leave quickly." One of them wanted to say something. I think it was nothing more than an overestimation of his ability, such as not wanting elixirs, but only asking to become a disciple, but his companions were sensible. Seeing that the 2 immortals were too lazy to talk nonsense with them, they quickly put away the pure bottle, held his arms again, and asked the servants and maids to leave quickly. Luoyan drove away the strangers, but Shilili didn't take it seriously. After all, there is a difference between immortals and mortals. She just excitedly dragged Luoyan and said, "The inscription somewhere on this rock wall is the entrance to the secret realm. Last time, I was drunk by you, and then I accidentally saw the inscription and entered by mistake." Senior sister. Don't talk nonsense. Luoyan was immediately shocked. What do you mean by drunk by me? If I hadn't suggested to follow Yang and Jiu's example and drink a little wine, how could you have accidentally entered the secret realm and benefited so much in the end? In fact, you still have to remember my kindness and repay me. Oh, I'm not blaming you. Shilili waved her hands quickly, stamped her feet anxiously and said, oh, why don't you understand? Chapter 445. Shilili's first visit to Baiyushing in Quansan Mountain. One does not know the seasons. The last time Shilili trained here, it was not to improve her swordsmanship, but to meet the requirements of the immortal consciousness here as soon as possible, so as to escape from the secret realm. At the time, Miss Shi did not know the importance of strength. Now with the Baiyushing competition in front of her, Shilili finally has some basic sense of honor. At least she knows how embarrassing it would be to return to Yuking Temple if she can't even make it to the top 12. The temple has invested so many resources in you, and also gave you the nickname of 7 Sons of Penglai, but you can't even make it to the top 12? Even if Elder Shiding in Tiangong Workshop can protect her, how can the Penglai disciples outside care so much? Originally, they were jealous of you 7 Sons of Penglai for eating so many resources. It can be imagined that they may not dare to criticize you openly, but they must be slandering you in private. Shilili does not want to lose face. Therefore, in Wangdamao Temple, Shilili and the Immortal Projection competed in swordsmanship, and their attitude can be said to be rare and serious. Luoyan watched from the side, thinking that it was no wonder that when Ling Yunpo fought against her, he found that her swordsmanship was not as bad as before. As for himself, he had nothing to do in the secret realm of Quansan Mountain. There are 3 inheritances in the secret realm of Quansan Mountain, namely swordsmanship, Taoism and astrology. There is no need to practice Taoism. After all, the 5 elements divine-like mechanism is invincible. As long as the true essence is enough, you can directly mow the grass. The swordsmanship side is occupied by Shilili, and after thinking about it, I can only go to the astrology side to have a look. When he came to Yingxuantanzu's Ormingju, Luoyan saw a tall and thin man standing there, saying, "You again? I have told you that you can't accept my astrology. You are not in the cycle of heaven, so you can't predict the secrets of heaven." This statement is the same as the Kunlun mirror, that is, everyone in this world is in the cycle of heaven, so there is no way to change the destined ending of the destruction of the world, but as a time traveler, I can exploit the loopholes in it and reverse the future doomsday. I am not here to learn about fortune-telling, Luoyan said in a deep voice, but to ask about my senior sister. She has always been lucky. Is she a person favored by God? Your senior sister does have a destiny. Yingxuantanzumingjan pondered for a moment and said, but she is not favored by God. The way of heaven is constant, and everything is as a straw dog. Although her destiny is an anomaly, it is still in the cycle of heaven, unlike you. Luo Yan was silent. If she is a person favored by God, then I am relieved. But it is not favored by God, but destiny, which is a bit worrying. You must know that things like destiny are often balanced in their internal fortunes. For example, Tianchuxing means that all relatives, friends and wife have died, but on the contrary, they have a very long life. Shili is so lucky, so what is the corresponding price? Forget it, even K. Jin can't figure it out, why should I worry about it? There is no use worrying. I can only wait and see later. Luo Yan came to Iron Damao Temple again and reminded Shili, sister, the day of the competition is approaching. We can't be too far away from King Temple, or our master will worry. Okay. Shili had been practicing for so many days and was full of confidence. Hearing this, he readily agreed. The two flew back to King Temple on their swords. After a few days, the day of the Baiyuxing competition officially arrived. Compared with Shushan, which had all its members mobilized, and Kunlin, which had almost all its members mobilized, there were obviously very few people willing to participate in the competition on Penglai's side, not even half of the number of Kunlin Shushan. Therefore, the residence of King Temple was set up in a valley, surrounded by lakes. Although the area was not large, it could barely accommodate everyone. Compared with the thatched cottage on the other side of Shushan, the temporary residence of King Temple was much more luxurious. It was a magic weapon in the style of a house. Once thrown into the hands of the elder leading the team, it turned into a series of pavilions and towers, shining brightly. The living conditions were simply one in heaven and one in hell. At this time, the Baiyuxing secret realm has been opened, but everyone is not in a hurry to draw lots. Instead, they slowly find their own rooms in the pavilions and towers. Then they fly to the direction of the secret realm one after another. Shili pulled Luo Yan and stayed at home to make lunch. After eating, they slowly went to the entrance of the Baiyuxing secret realm and said, "Junior brother, you said there are so many thousands of people. If we want to draw lot one by one, how long will the queue be? I think it's too early to go there at noon. We should wait until the queues are almost empty and all the bad lots have been taken. Then we can get the remaining good lots." Luo Yan, only Mishi can say such a thing, but the lottery is not drawn in a queue, so your idea will fail. As soon as I stepped into the Baiyuxing secret realm, I heard Shili screamed and pulled Luo Yan to run in the square. "Junior brother, look at the many pavilions and towers in the distance, all suspended in the clouds. It's just like the fairyland." "Yes," Luo Yan responded. "And look at the appearance and color of those buildings." Shili looked at the distance curiously. "It seems to be all white stone and white jade." "Yes," Luo Yan said honestly. "I feel that the layout of these buildings is a bit like a huge sword." Shili said hesitantly. "Really?" Luo Yan was a little surprised. "When I first came in as Ling Yun, I felt that the overall temperament of these buildings was extremely sharp. I didn't expect Mishi to have the same feeling." However, Shili did not continue to entangle in this regard, but just ran to the end of the square excitedly. There is a suspended corridor there, with no support below. One end is connected to the Baiyuxing square, and the other end is connected to a floating J building somewhere, which is the so-called No. 1 pavilion. In the entire Baiyuxing, there are 12 such large pavilions. In addition, there are countless scattered small pavilions and towers, which are also suspended and scattered around the 12 giant buildings. On one side of the square, a 10-foot-high jade board had been erected. On the other side, on both sides of the entrance to the corridor, there were 2 white stone pillars, surrounded by countless monks, watching in amazement. The two of them looked inside from the outside of the crowd and saw that the left pillar was engraved with 12 towers and 5 cities and the right pillar was engraved with heavenly white jade capital. The fonts were both as strong and powerful as if they were cut by a knife or an axe. "Wow!" Mishi exclaimed, "I feel that the grandeur and beauty of this secret realm is no less than that of the East Sea Palace. To be honest, Baiyuxing is better." Luo Yan said honestly, "The East Sea Palace was built in the ancient times, and the Baiyuxing secret realm was built in the ancient human race. It is actually difficult to compare the two. It's just a little too white." Shili didn't listen to Luo Yan at all, but continued to look around and said, "Everything is white, and it's a bit dazzling." She pulled Luo Yan up on the sword and was about to fly towards the 12 huge pavilions in the distance, when suddenly she heard the crowd around her exclaim. The two looked back and saw that a large number of ripples suddenly appeared on the surface of the jade list on the square. Countless swords shot out from the ripples and flew away in all directions. Chapter 446. The End of Gambler. Luo Yan followed the sword to the 8th pavilion, only to see that his opponent this time was a Shushan disciple. To be exact, according to Ling Yunpo's memory, it was Wu Shai Hangru, the current 67th on the Immortal Sword ranking and the third sister at Baiun Peak. A person from Penglai. After the other party carefully looked at Luo Yan and confirmed that he was a monk from Penglai King Temple, he showed an expression of TSK, Penglai weakling, and said impatiently, "Hurry up and finish the fight." Luo Yan smiled and saluted, and he was also laughing in his heart. In order to cope with the Shushan competition, he had once made up with Lin Yulanzhen about the intelligence information of all the top 100 disciples on the Immortal Sword ranking. This third sister at Baiun Peak was extremely impatient, and liked to rush to attack and compete for the rhythm of the battlefield, sometimes even at the cost of exposing flaws. In addition, every time she rushed to attack, the flying sword would greet the opponent's forehead in 9 out of 10 cases. She was a fan of headshots. It was very easy to deal with. The game started soon, and before Luo Yan could say anything, the opponent immediately shot the flying sword at him. Luo Yan had expected her to attack, and when she made a sword gesture, he bent down and reached for the Tiangong treasure bag on his waist. The moment he lowered his head, he just dodged the attack of the flying sword. The attack missed, and Sister Wu did not think about why it missed, but her expression became more and more impatient, and she made a series of sword gestures, and shot another flying sword. Luo Yan naturally knew that she could control the sword with both hands, so he took out the magic weapon from the Tiangong treasure bag. This treasure bag is the most spiritual, and every time he took something out of the bag, the magic weapon that is most suitable for the current environment came out. Suddenly, a ball of cloud gauze appeared in Luo Yan's hand, and he threw it around his body, and it immediately turned into clouds and mist. The flying sword shot into the clouds and mist, and it seemed to be stuck in a quagmire. Soon it was unable to turn around and was trapped in it. "What magic weapon is that?" Sister Wu shouted in shock, but she kept making sword gestures in her hand, directing another flying sword to attack, trying to use the sword method. "Oh, it's just the Crimson Palace smoke net," Luo Yan said casually, pointing his finger, and the cloud suddenly stretched out a rope to tie up senior Sister Wu, who was still stimulating her true essence and was caught off guard. This thing cannot be hurt by ordinary swords and knives. Duo has already lost this time. The winner is Penglai, Luo Yan. As the mechanical voice sounded, Luo Yan clasped his fists and saluted again, then put away the Crimson Palace smoke net and put it back into the treasure bag on his waist. He was about to leave when he saw 3 or 4 Shushan sword immortals suddenly rushing over. They were all disciples of Baiun Peak. They surrounded the distraught senior sister and shouted in unison, "How did senior sister lose? You still lost to Penglai. How do we explain to Master?" Luo Yan didn't bother to care about how they explained. "Who told you to subconsciously look down on Penglai disciples?" After leaving the pavilion and walking around a few times nearby, he saw Shiluli flying his sword from below. Luo Yan hurried forward and called out, "Sister Shi." "Brother." Shiluli stopped the sword light. "Are you done?" "Did you win?" "Thanks to my opponent for letting me win by chance," Luo Yan said shyly, brushing up his character synchronization value every day. "Where's Sister Shi?" "Oh, I got a buy in the first game." Shiluli handed him the palm sword. "Luo Yan, you are worthy of it. This is the first time I have seen a sword marked with 0. This competition is over. The next round will be at least 8 or 9 days later." Luo Yan smiled. "Why don't we go to Tianmu Mountain outside?" "Later." Shiluli waved his hand and said, "I want to watch other people's games." Luo Yan had no objection, so he accompanied Shiluli to stroll around Baiyujing. The first match was between Qiu Changtai and that guy. "I don't know him, but he's a disciple at Kunlin. It's such a pity that you weren't there, junior brother." Entering a pavilion where a battle was taking place, Shiluli chattered. With one strike of the sword from Chief Qiu, the opponent's flying sword was directly blown away. It had no power to fight back at all and could only admit defeat on the spot. "If it were me, I wouldn't be so stupid. As soon as Qiu Changtai stood on the field, I would just admit defeat. I couldn't win anyway. Although there is a huge gap in strength." Luo Yan smiled, "But it's shameful to lose without a fight. I think it's important for people to know themselves." Shiluli snorted, "Isn't it shameful to be defeated? And the opponent is Qiu Changtai. Even if we admit defeat, no one can say anything." "Hey, junior brother, who do you think will win on this field?" Luo Yan looked closely and saw that the two people fighting on the field were a cunning cultivator and a Shushan swordsman. The cunning monk was not a stranger either. He was a disciple of the Ziwi sect master, the 275th generation chief, named Wang Ban. Qiu Chang's Time called him Brother Wang, and he could see him every time he went to the lecture room to listen to the sutras. The Shushan monk was Song Hen, the 8th on the immortal sword ranking. He was also a veteran swordsman. At this time, he was fighting Wang Ban's magic with two flying swords, and it was hard to tell who was better. Kunlun should be better. Luo Yan looked carefully for a moment and said, Shushan swordsmen are good at quick kills. If it is a protracted war, the longer it drags on, the more disadvantageous it will be for the Kunlun monks. I think Shushan can win. Shili said with a smile, how about we make a bet? Okay, what's the bet? Luo Yan asked. The loser has to agree to something the winner does. Shili smiled with narrowed eyes. Okay. Luo Yan had just agreed when Wang Ban, who was standing off the field, suddenly said, fellow Daoist Song is very good at swordsmanship. I'm ashamed of myself. I will admit defeat this time, okay? Why is that, fellow Daoist Wang? Song Hen also put away his flying sword and asked unhappily. It is true that the Shushan sword immortal likes to win, but he hates this kind of victory of charity extremely. Just now when I was fighting with you, I suddenly realized something and was about to think hard about it. Wang Ban said with a serious face, I only have 10 years left in my young life, and the day of forming a pill is imminent. Please forgive me. Song Hen was silent for a moment, then he clasped his fists and said, in that case, fellow Daoist, please do as you please, take care. Luo Yan. He just woke up from his dream. Senior brother Wang was the 275th generation chief disciple, and he had been a disciple of Kunlun for 170 years. Considering that he entered the sect at the age of 20, he was already 190 years old at this time, and his young life was only 10 years left. It would be dangerous if he didn't form a pill. Dan formation is a difficult threshold that every cultivator must pass in order to achieve the great dough. No matter how much preparation is made, it is not too much. Since senior brother Wang suddenly had an epiphany during the battle, he must quickly find a place to digest his experience, so that he can have more chips before Dan formation. Therefore, let alone Song Hen at Shushan, even if the head of Kunlun Ziwi was here, he would not blame him for giving up the Baiyujing competition. If he must enter the top 12 in the competition, it would be fine. After all, the rewards of Kunlun Tai King sect must include good things that help Dan formation, but it is obvious that Wang Ban has no confidence in making it into the top 12 of Baiyujing. Instead of competing for a place without rewards, it is definitely more important to pursue one's own path. This is something that every cultivator can understand. Hehe, junior brother, I won. Shili was a little surprised by the sudden change in the field, but he quickly reacted and said with a proud hum. Senior sister is amazing. Luo Yan was already convinced, but he was thinking in his heart. Knowing Mishi's great luck, why did I make this bet with her? No, I have to find a way, either make her forget about it, or let her use up the bet in advance. Chapter 447 She hates me, she has me in her heart. Luo Yan accompanied Shili to stroll around. The reason why he used the word accompany was because Luo Yan was not interested in the battles of these ordinary cultivators. Their swordsmanship was not good, their magic weapons were low level, and their Taoist skills were few and far between. Most of the flying swords were pecking at each other, without any technical content. What was there to see? Shili did not have the same high vision as Luo Yan. She rarely fought with others. At this time, she saw all kinds of flying swords with different colors, many magic weapons, and all kinds of methods, competing for beauty. She was simply fascinated and reluctant to leave. The swordsmanship of the Shushan man just now was really beautiful. After watching a battle, Shili left the pavilion for a long time, and she was still talking with lingering interest. The reason was simple. The opponent's sword light was mainly red gold, mixed with cold white stars, which was in line with Mishi's aesthetics. Luo Yan was thinking. The man who was praised by Mishi was Zunli, who was ranked 67th on the immortal sword ranking. His fighting style was known for being decisive, and his swordsmanship was also clean and neat, but other than that, there was nothing outstanding. Why did this stupid Mishi think that the other party's swordsmanship was beautiful? What was beautiful about it? Just when Luo Yan was puzzled, he saw Mishi suddenly put down the sword light and landed around a crowded building. She asked curiously, why are there so many people here? Luo Yan took a closer look and found that it was the place where senior sister and Kunlun Fa Yuanzi had competed. At the same time, the lines given by Kunlun Mirror appeared in his eyes, indicating that the past Ling Yunpo was nearby, and the next words would be observed by him. At this time, he had to ensure that the time loop was closed. So he read the lines again and successfully fooled Shiluli. As for the lines, we will not mention them here for now. Then, he heard Shiluli suddenly say, "Hey, junior brother. That person, have I seen him before?" Luo Yan followed her gaze and his heart almost jumped out of his chest. The person Shiluli was staring at was Ling Yunpo, who had his back to this side. Luo Yan was stunned on the spot, and Miss Shi turned to look at him, and then looked at Ling Yunpo, who was gradually moving away. Due to the illusion of the mirror flower and water moon, Shiluli thought that the person looks like my junior brother was quickly suppressed and eliminated. Instead, in order to explain the familiar feeling, he made up his mind, have I seen that person before? Luo Yan quickly came back to his senses, secretly saying in his heart that it was not good, and quickly said jokingly, "Senior sister, judging from the way that person is dressed, he seems to be from Shushan. How could you have seen him before? Could it be that he is tired of worshipping Qiu Chang's Han and wants to change his taste?" Shiluli was fine after hearing the first half of the sentence, but when Luo Yan said the second half, she immediately gritted her teeth and showed a super angry expression. "What do you mean by change your taste? Junior brother, you are talking nonsense like this, I will never pay attention to you again." After saying that, she flew away angrily. Luo Yan breathed a sigh of relief. What he said just now was too frivolous and rude, and even had a bit of contempt in it. But no matter what, it finally diverted Miss Shi's attention, so that she would not think about what is the connection between Ling Yunpo and Luo Yan. After all, making Shiluli unhappy is a small matter, but the risk of exposing her identity is a big deal. Even if Miss Shi is angry, there is still room for maneuver later, but if she finds out the actual connection between Ling Yunpo and Luo Yan, then Luo Yan will not have to think about how to coax Miss Shi, but how to kill Miss Shi to silence her. Miss Shi is so cute, I can't bear to hurt her, so I can only resort to this last resort. Who can understand my painstaking efforts? Fortunately, from the fact that Shiluli and Ling Yushu went to visit Ling Yunpo later, Shiluli only stayed in the impression that Ling Yunpo looks familiar, and did not think deeply about it. As Nzisu became more jealous and showed her hostility, Shiluli no longer paid attention to Ling Yunpo, but remembered the disagreement with Nzisu. After careful consideration, Luo Yan set out to find Shiluli and apologized properly. As a result, after searching for a long time, Miss Shi was not found. It seemed that she was no longer in the secret realm of Baiyujing. On the other side, Shiluli returned to the Yuqing Temple residence in Tianmu Mountain and saw his senior brother Ling Yushu and his third senior sister Liang Ruohua walking side by side in the corridor. The traitor focuses on making zithers. Today, Tiangong Workshop has no zither-related magic weapons, and the various sects in Shenzhou are already dissatisfied. Ling Yushu said seriously, Master still has taboos about this, but you and I, as disciples, should still advise him. The so-called traitor naturally refers to Lei Qian, the second senior sister who defected from Tiangong Workshop in the past. Lei Qian originally focused on zither-related magic weapons in Tiangong Workshop. There are also several sects in Shenzhou continent, and the inheritance is the sound-related Taoism, which requires zither-related magic weapons to assist. Now that Lei Qian has defected, no one in Tiangong Workshop can make zithers anymore, which means that the production capacity in this area has completely returned to zero. In addition, Elder Shiding is still brooding over this matter, and has always been unwilling to recruit a new disciple to focus on the art of making zithers. In the long run, Tiangong Workshop's market share in this area is likely to be completely lost. Alas! Third senior sister Liang Ruohua had no good solution. She just sighed and said, after the death of fourth junior brother, the Shi family sent people to test us many times, and Master also talked about it. Before Lei Qian rebelled, he also killed fourth junior brother Shi Wenxi. Guangling Shi family specializes in space-related Taoism, and is also the main supplier of storage items such as treasure bags and storage bags. The death of Shi Wenxi did not damage the economic interests of Tiangong Fang, but the connection with Guangling Shi family was cut off, which was naturally helpless. Fortunately, the Shi family has tentatively proposed that they are willing to send another disciple as the disciple of Elder Shiding. But Elder Shiding always talked about other things, which made the Shi family confused. In fact, Ling Yushu and Liang Ruohua knew that Elder Shiding was still upset about the rebellion and death of the two disciples, so he was unwilling to accept another disciple to avoid being hurt by the scene. Giving the Bai Bao Tiangong back to Luo Yan is also a manifestation of disillusionment and despair to a certain extent. But Master, you are still the leader of the Tiangong Fan lineage. When it comes to political matters, how can personal feelings control reason? The two continued to talk for a few sentences and reached a consensus. They still need to persuade the master. But Shillelagh suddenly pressed down the sword light, called senior brother and senior sister, and then a tearful expression appeared. Ling Yushu and Liang Guohe looked at each other for a moment, and they knew that the little junior sister was going to complain again. Because elder Shiding is more sentimental, the atmosphere of Tiangongfang is like a family, so that everyone is used to seeing Shillelagh as a sister. When encountering something unhappy, Shillelagh will naturally think of confiding to brother and sister. It is precisely because of this that Luo Yan feels that Miss Shi has not yet reached adulthood psychologically. Ling Yushu and Liang Guohe don't think so. After all, they have cultivated a deep brother-sister relationship with the little junior sister for many years, so they smiled and led her into the next room. After entering the room, listening to Shillelagh's complaints and understanding the ins and outs, the two are a little speechless. In the end, Miss Shi felt that Luo Yan was belittling her. Why did she say that? Because Luo Yan said that she originally worshipped Qiu Chang Tian and now fell in love with the Shushan monks, which was too harsh to hear. However, after hearing this, the two of them had different thoughts. The eldest brother Ling Yushu was more straightforward and thought, Master has already designated that the little junior sister will definitely marry the little junior brother in the future. If it were me, it would be really annoying to hear this fiancé saying Chief Qiu was so handsome and I have seen that Shushan brother all the time. Although these words are harsh, they're understandable. As a woman, the third sister Liang Guohe was more delicate in her thoughts. She thought, the little junior brother is not the kind of person who loves to fight for favors. At the beginning, the little junior sister worshipped the Chief Qiu and was not angry. Why is he angry because of a strange Shushan monk now? Yes, he should not be angry, but to test the little junior sister's feelings. If the junior sister feels being despised and is sad, it means that she cares very much about the junior brother's opinion of her, and the meaning is self-evident. On the other hand, if she no longer cares about him, it proves that the junior sister has no feelings for him, and the junior brother can withdraw as soon as possible and explain his difficulties to the master. Alas, meeting such a simple junior sister, the junior brother really has good intentions. Chapter 448. Master's vision is really accurate. There is a misunderstanding here. Ling Yushu sighed. He put the emphasis on the word "are," implying "oh, it shouldn't be like this." As for why there is this misunderstanding that shouldn't happen, please Shillelagh reflect carefully. Yes, it is indeed a misunderstanding. Liang Guohe echoed. She put the emphasis on the word indeed, implying this is really a misunderstanding. As for whether he misunderstood you or you misunderstood him, please reverse your thinking. Shillelagh was immediately dumbfounded. Usually when she was angry with others, didn't the eldest brother and the third sister always speak for her? Why did they start to smooth things over when they met the little junior brother? It was obviously his fault. So she tried to smack her eyes, squeezed out a few tears, and showed an expression of I am so wronged. Ling Yushu and Liang Guohe really couldn't bear to see the little junior sister being wronged, so they all gave her advice. Little junior sister, calm down and leave him alone. Ling Yushu said seriously. When Luo Yan calms down, he will probably find Shillelagh to reconcile. That's what the senior brother thought. Shillelagh was also somewhat tempted. Luo Yan is so hateful, I won't pay attention to him until he begs me. Can't leave it alone. Liang Guohe hurriedly stopped him and said. Luo Yan was obviously testing whether Shillelagh would be jealous. If Shillelagh didn't react at all, Luo Yan would definitely misunderstand. I'll teach you, you can do the opposite and ask him, I admire Qiu Chang Tian. Why are you so angry? Liang Guohe made a new suggestion. This is a method of turning the tables, testing whether Luo Yan is jealous. If Luo Yan admits that he is jealous, then the two sides will understand each other's intentions at once, and the matter will naturally end. Shillelagh's eyes lit up when she heard this. Although she didn't understand that this was a test, she felt that she could turn the tables on Luo Yan, which was very satisfying. You can't do that. Ling Yushu interrupted immediately. Junior brother is already angry with you, but you pretend not to understand and ask him back. Isn't that just adding fuel to the fire? I tell you, just put down your airs and reconcile with him. Ling Yushu persuaded. That's fine. Liang Guohe echoed, there is nothing that can't be solved by communication. Shillelagh was immediately unhappy. Luo Yan said that to me, but you want me to bow down and communicate with him. Isn't that going to make him ride on my head even more in the future? However, what made her even more unhappy was that the eldest brother and the third sister, who used to stand behind her, unconsciously began to speak for Luo Yan. This made Mishi feel wronged. But she knew that tears should be shed for the people she cares about. Now that the eldest brother and the third sister have made it clear that they want to speak for Luo Yan, if she shed tears, although she can win back a game in front of them, but in private, people will definitely think that she is not as sensible as Luo Yan, and thus look down on her even more. Therefore, she could only hold back her tears and say goodbye. Strangely, when she left the room and walked to the corridor, she was blown by the late breeze in front of her, and Mishi suddenly didn't want to cry anymore. Alas, these are just trivial matters, forget it. Forget it. She looked at the beautiful scenery of lakes and mountains, and her mood unconsciously improved. She raised her arms and stretched comfortably. Then she saw Luo Yan flying back from a distance. She only stared at him in a daze until Luo Yan landed beside her, and tears immediately flowed down. Secret technique. The art of silent sobbing. Luo Yan was also scared by her. He thought that although he was trying to confuse her, it seemed that he had performed too much in the end, so he pulled her into his arms and hugged her. She only struggled, but how could she struggle? In anger, she wiped her tears and snobbed on him. Dirt his clothes. Luo Yan was rubbed by her for a long time, and he could not hold back, so he could only pat her back gently and said, "Senior sister, I was wrong this time." As soon as these words came out, she immediately lost most of her strength and almost limp in his arms. There were still a lot of tricks to be used on him, of course not those shitty tricks taught by the eldest brother and the third sister, such as the tearful technique, the self-abandonment technique, the hysteria technique. How come the junior brother suddenly admitted his fault without doing anything? Anyway, it's good. Mishi, who was nervous, suddenly relaxed her heartstrings and immediately had the impulse of collapse, but soon stood up again and asked with a stern face, "What's wrong with you?" "The mistake is that I spoke without thinking," Luo Yan said with a wry smile. "What else?" She only showed a fierce expression. "The mistake is that I was disrespectful to my sister," Luo Yan continued. The synchronization value rose rapidly. She finally burst into laughter and said shyly, "Don't talk about me like that in the future." "Of course," Luo Yan said immediately. Ling Yushu and Liang Ruo hid behind that door. When they heard the two of them reconcile, they looked at each other for a moment and smiled sweetly. And Shi thought again and said seriously, "I really think that the Shushan monk seems to have seen him before, but I just can't remember it for the time being. I'm not interested in him, I'm just curious." This explained that he didn't have any intentions towards Ling Yunpo in that aspect, so Luo Yan nodded and said, "I know. But has senior sister been to Shushan before?" "No." Ling Yushu immediately pushed the door open and walked out. On this occasion of Bai Yuling's grand event, it's okay to get to know him. I'll take junior sister there. After saying that, he also winked at Luo Yan in a self-righteous manner. Luo Yan naturally understood what he meant immediately. It's not a good thing for a woman to be curious about a strange man. After all, curiosity is the prerequisite for many relationships. When encountering such a thing, it is useless to force it, and it may cause a rebellious mentality. The correct approach is to get to know each other openly to dispel this unfounded curiosity, and at the same time control the number of contacts to prevent any possibility of further development of the relationship. As curiosity disappears, coupled with the lack of contact, it gradually fades. I heard that many mature parents deal with daughters who have a tendency to fall in love early, and this is how they do it. Of course, Luo Yan was able to guess Ling Yushu's intention so quickly, mainly because he knew the future in advance. After Ling Yushu brought Shilili and met Ling Yunpo, Mishi quickly gave up the idea. Later, when she defeated Bai Lin, she had a negative impression of Ling Yunpo. Therefore, Luo Yan had no worries at all. Anyway, this piece of meat is rotten in the pot, so who is afraid of whose chopsticks to pick it up? "Brother Luo, will you come with me to see the heroes of Shushan?" Ling Yushu said with a smile. This was because he was afraid that Luo Yan would not understand his intentions, so he invited him to go together to avoid misunderstandings. Luo Yan certainly couldn't do anything that went against history, so he smiled and waved his hand and said, "No, I still have to prepare for the next game." His expression was so calm that Ling Yushu secretly thought to himself that the junior brother was not a stable person who liked to fight for favors. Alas, the master's vision was really accurate in handing over the junior sister to the junior brother. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Mundo Fanfic Novelers, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelers. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 449. Jumping back and forth. There is still some time before Ling Yushu visits Shushan, and it seems that he wants to choose a time when everyone in Shushan is free. Shili is watching the game in the secret realm of Baiyujing, while Luoyan is practicing in the Yuking Temple in Tianmu Mountain. Now Luoyan can use 4 trump cards, namely Wanchime Kun Sword as a regular attack, Tiangong Bai Bahu Bag as a specialized attack, Tian Yushan as a mobility supplement. Acquired 5 elements Great Extinction Divine Light as a killer. Of course, the reason why that trump card is a trump card is that it should not be used as much as possible. What kind of ability is hidden is in line with the standard of Luoyan's hypocritical personality. Just being able to win to the top 12 is enough. Going to compete with Qiu Chang's Haiyan for the first place, Luoyan is not a fool. How could he do such a stupid thing as fighting with his hands? Therefore, he has secretly planned to use Wanchime Kun Sword and Tiangong Bai Bahu Bag as the main means of attack before entering the top 12. The former is because in this era, the sword controlling technique is really useful, just like the revolver in the Western cowboy movie, fast and accurate. The latter is because as the symbol of the heir of Tiangong Workshop, almost the entire Yuking Temple knows that the Tiangong 100 treasure bag is in his hands, so there is no need to hide it. In addition to these two, the acquired 5 elements Extinction Divine Light is not convenient to use before entering the top 12. According to the future history observed by Ling Yunpo, he won the first game against Guanzhen, and lost the second game against senior sister An. In other words, in the first game, he will crush junior brother Guan, so as to play the reputation of the 5 elements Divine Light and achieve the effect of making Yuking Temple famous. In the second game, he lost to Anzesu, which must be because he was letting her win. In fact, with the actual abundance of Chang Yonzu's true energy, if he wanted to use the 5 elements Divine Light to surround and kill senior sister An, the winning rate would be more than 80%. Without a powerful enough magic weapon that can restrain the 5 elements Divine Light, senior sister An would be powerless to fight back as long as she was hit by the 5 elements Divine Light. But if it was Luoyan, considering that he was practicing the garbage tea refining technique 3 flowers gathering spirits of Tiangong Workshop, the time his true essence could maintain the 5 elements Divine Light was too short, and it was basically impossible to trap senior sister An, who had integrated her body and sword and whose speed was soaring. As long as the true essence was exhausted, Luoyan could only use other means, and the difficulty of winning would be greatly increased. It was impossible to use the Tianyu Divine Shuttle. Even Elder Shiding didn't know that he had already unlocked the first layer, so he must have kept it as a reserve trump card. The Tiangong treasure bag must be the main force, and various magic weapons in it could be used to resist the sword attack of senior sister An. But the problem was that it took time to take the magic weapon or activate it, and with senior sister An's sharp swordsmanship, it was unlikely that she would give herself this opportunity. I couldn't use my swordsmanship level far beyond Luoyan to fight with Feian and Hanli to buy time, so the only remaining feasibility was formation. In today's world of cultivation, modern formations are often large and bloated, with each node, each line, and each rune standardized. The advantage is that the learning threshold is lowered and maintenance is also convenient, but the disadvantage is that the workload in the layout stage is extremely large, and it is almost impossible to use in battle. However, Luoyan also learned ancient formations in the Gaiqiu Palace. The ancient formations are small and capable, and all the nodes, lines, and rooms are highly coupled to each other, like exquisite and complex works of art. The advantage is that they are small enough to be integrated on the formation tripod, but the disadvantage is that the learning threshold is ridiculously high, and once the formation master is not here, no one can take over the maintenance. Of course, Luoyan does not intend to set up the formation for others, so the ancient formation is his best choice to resist Anzisu. Logically speaking, only the monks of Yuking Temple who are not strong enough in hard power will think of using talismans, formations, and magic weapons to supplement their combat power. With Luoyan's swordsmanship and Taoism level, those of the same level can be defeated in seconds, so what formation is needed? I can only say that the hypocritical character setting, which likes to show weakness to the enemy, is completely opposite to invincibility, unyielding, mystery, etc. It took Luoyan several days to finally design the Thorn Hidden Shadow array and engrave it on the tripod. When fighting, bring the tripod with you, and then throw the array flat around to make the array take effect immediately. As for this Thorny Hidden Shadow array, although it is not an ancient array known for its lethality, it is very suitable for dealing with senior sister An. Because in game terms, the effect of this array is called reverse injury. In short, with the help of this array, it can probably ensure a 50-50 match with senior sister An. The subsequent defeat was a slight disadvantage, which can be regarded as a reputation. I think the temple will not blame me. Just when Luo Yan was making a careful calculation, he saw Shilili had returned with Ling Dushu. Oh, senior sister. Seeing Shilili push the door in, Luo Yan asked casually, how is it? After meeting that Shushan monk, did you remember anything? No. Shilili shook her head. I was wrong, I have never seen him before. Really? Luo Yan breathed a sigh of relief. I just thought he looked a bit like you, junior brother, so I thought I had seen him before. Shilili continued, leaning over to look at the tripod he placed on the table. Luo Yan. No, why did you get around to the similarity between me and Ling Yunpo again? Then my previous change of topic, the trouble of coaxing, no, the trouble of comforting, weren't all these in vain? What is your tripod for? Shilili was not shy, picked up the small tripod and looked at it from left to right. What formation is engraved on it? With her attainments in formations, it is normal that she can't tell what formation it is. Although Luo Yan was panicking at this time, he pretended to be calm on his face and thought quickly in his mind. Of course, at this time, you can use the method of changing the subject and pass over the similarities between you and Ling Yunpo. However, since Shilili mentioned this twice, it means that this matter has left an impression in her memory. If you don't take the opportunity to solve it now, when she thinks of it again, you will not be able to control it. Thinking of this, Luo Yan decided not to delay it until later, and must dispel her suspicion here, even if it is just a little bit. Senior sister, how were I similar to that Shushan monk? He complained, pretending to be depressed, but his eyes narrowed more. It is said that there are many reckless men in Shushan. Am I a reckless man in your heart? That's not the case. Shilili waved his hand and said, I can't say where it is specifically, probably just that the feeling is more similar. Luo Yan breathed a sigh of relief. It turned out to be just a feeling, and it couldn't be said for sure. Think about it carefully, it's not such a coincidence. Shilili said with his chin on his hand. Luo Yan immediately tensed up again. Could it be your long-lost brother or something like that? Shilili smiled. What? It turns out you are kidding me. Luo Yan smiled bitterly and said, Sister, please don't tease me. I'm the only child in my family. How can I have a long-lost brother? Tell me more carefully. Shilili suddenly said thoughtfully, you do seem to look similar. Luo Yan's smile froze, and he cursed Kunlun Mirror in his heart. You broken mirror, where is the flawless illusion you promised? But his eyes are bigger than yours. If they are not brothers, it is so interesting that there are people in the world who happen to look so similar to you. Shilili laughed. Look. Kunlun Mirror said hurriedly, although they look very similar, you have squinty eyes. Moreover, under the illusion of Jing Wishu you, she will subconsciously treat you as two people. There is no problem with my illusion. I think it's better to silence Miss Shi. Luo Yan thought seriously. This kind of repeated jumping and frightening me is simply unbearable. Some book friends are very worried about me. Let me report to you. An uncle did come to check last night. He first confirmed that we did not have cash transactions and electronic transfers, and then checked the identity of the reader lady to confirm that she could cosplay Barbara instead of Klee. Finally, he asked her why she came. She said she came to watch me to update. The two uncles left when they saw that there was no problem. In fact, this reader lady did not come to watch me to update, but to watch me to go to bed on time. Because last time I complained to the book friends that I stayed up late to write a book until 1 AM, the book friends in the group said that health is the most important thing. Everyone would rather see less updates than want the author to get sick. This lady took the initiative to come and supervise. I can only say that I appreciate the concern of the book friends. I will pay attention to rest in the future. There is really no need to organize book friends to come and supervise. I only wrote one chapter last night. Let's see if I can catch it up during the lunch break today. Chapter 450. Pick Naught. Perhaps it was due to Shilili's good luck that Luo Yan was able to overcome all the difficulties and did not encounter any strong opponents. He originally wanted to use the Wang Time Kun sword and the Tiangong Bai Baho bag to chop melons and vegetables, but he found that the magic weapons in the Tiangong Bai Baho bag were enough to sweep everything. No one can force me to draw my sword, what a pity. But if you think about it carefully, most of the cultivators who came to participate in the Baiyujing competition are not very strong in Luo Yan's eyes. Among nearly 1,000 cultivators, it is a rare thing with a small probability to be able to draw those 10 or so whose strength Luo Yan barely takes a look at. Half a month later, with only 100 or so people left to be promoted, the quality of the opponents was obviously much higher. Of course, it was still not good enough for Luo Yan. As he defeated several Shushan disciples in succession, he naturally caught the eyes of some Shushan cultivators. What happened to Luo Yan? A Shushan cultivator asked in surprise, how come even senior brother Wei was defeated by him? When did you King Temple produce such a strong man? He can't really threaten those people, right? I warned you a long time ago. Senior sister Wu, the Shushan sword immortal, who was defeated by Luo Yan in the first match, looked at the people who had just woken up and said with regret, Luo Yan is not an ordinary Penglai weakling. Senior brother Wei didn't believe my advice and still looked down on him, so he deserved this defeat. Even if I didn't look down on him, my strength is not as good as his. Senior brother Wei said sullenly, in my opinion, his strength is not less than senior brother Juan. The disciples looked at each other. Juan Fan Hai is also a veteran strongman in Shushan. In the past, he almost never fell out of the top 5 in the Shushan competition, and he won the second place several times. Whether from the perspective of reason or emotion, they were unwilling to believe that the squinting, seemingly harmless Penglai disciple actually had the strength to match Juan Fan Hai. The news soon reached Juan Fan Hai's ears. He didn't care what strong enemy Penglai could produce. However, Lin Yuanzhen, who happened to be nearby, heard it and remembered it silently. The opponent in the last round was a disciple of Cunning, also a junior brother named Mu Huqiu Chang Tai Niu. He used an extremely amazing North Pole Yuan magnetic dazzle Taoist method. Once the dazzle came out, no matter what flying sword magic weapon you have, it will be directly absorbed by it. It can be said to be the nemesis of Shushan sword immortal. Unfortunately, he met Luo Yan, a traitor, who knew his trump cards very well. He directly took out the Cunning magnetic mother from the Tiangong treasure bag. This thing has no other use, but to collect the Yuan magnetic divine light. When junior brother Mu performed the Taoist method, he threw out the Cunning magnetic mother, just like a sponge absorbing water, and completely absorbed the North Pole Yuan magnetic dazzle. Junior brother Mu collapsed on the spot. Before he had time to spit blood, he was hit in the face by Luo Yan with 180,000 white hair magic needles and was defeated directly. After winning this match, he will enter the top 12 of Baiyujing. Luo Yan was very proud and thought that this Tiangong treasure bag was a magical artifact, worthy of being a legacy of Tiangong Fang. As a hypocritical person, he valued strength the most, and there were more than 100 magic weapons in this bag. It was like a hard drive of a group of big men, with all kinds of magic weapons. In addition, he basically knew all the powerful people in the 3 orthodox sects. With the support of intelligence, he could take out targeted magic weapons from the Tiangong treasure bag, and it would be easy to win. Congratulations, fellow Daoist Luo. He was about to leave the field when Lin Yuanzhen suddenly came over to talk. May I ask who you are, fellow Daoist? Luo Yan pretended not to know him and asked with a salute. Shushan, Lin Yuanzhen. Lin Yuanzhen said reservedly. It is also very particular to introduce yourself. Because the sectarianism within Shushan is far more than Kumlin and Penglai, ordinary Shushan disciples often say I'm San from Shushan so-and-so peak when introducing themselves, so as to use the reputation of their master to elevate themselves. Then, who doesn't need to report their master, but only mention Shushan? Those strong men who were already famous within Shushan. Lin Yuanzhen's name implies that he is not an ordinary mediocre disciple. Luo Yan naturally knows what's interesting, and immediately showed an expression of having heard of his name for a long time, and smiled and said, Penglai, Luo Yan. Lin Yuanzhen nodded slightly, indicating that he heard it. Even if we don't mention his strength, just the Tiangong treasure bag on his waist and the identity of the heir of Tiangong Fan behind him are worth Lin Yuanzhen's collection of information about him. That's right, although outsiders may not know, Luo Yan knows that Lin Yuanzhen is clearly here to gather information. You have to know that senior brother Lin is a Shushan sword immortal who is in the top 100 of the immortal sword list. He is a super test taker who knows the characteristics, advantages and disadvantages of each person's fighting style. Luo Yan's strength can enter the top 12 of Baiyujing. If he is in Shushan, he is the level of the top 5 strong men. How could this guy be indifferent? I wonder why Brother Lin called me. Oh, first of all, I want to congratulate Brother Luo for his promotion, and secondly, I want to get to know you because I see that you are so handsome. Well, I, Lin, always like to make friends with heroes, but I am so abrupt this time. I am sorry. Luo Yan was speechless. He didn't expect that senior brother Lin Yuanzhen was so skilled in flattery. But when he thought about it carefully, when he first met senior brother Lin, this guy ordered Lin Yunpo around, but he was a doctor in Zissou. It was a typical admiration for the strong. Lin Yulanzhen was about to say something when a purple sword light suddenly flew over. Junior brother. She Li fell to the ground, and then threw herself into his arms without hesitation, crying with joy, "I'm pregnant. I'm pregnant." Luo Yan inexplicably hugged her from behind, and seeing her crying and laughing, he suddenly had the urge to slap her in the face to calm her down. "Evil beast, what are you pregnant with? I have a spot in the top 12. Fortunately, Miss Shi also knew that she didn't explain it clearly, so she showed him the sword she had drawn. Luo Yan looked carefully, and Lin Yulanzhen heard that it was another top 12, and he also opened his eyes wide to look at it, and saw that it was written 0. As we all know, the numbering rules of the swords are 1 to 2, 3 to 4. In addition, if the total number n is an odd number, then the highest number of the swords is n-1, and then there is an extra 0 sign, which means a buy. Luo Yan highly suspected that the maker of this magic weapon was a programmer. In any case, he had already prepared himself for the outrageous degree of Miss Shi's good luck. But Lin Yulanzhen had never seen this before, and he immediately exclaimed, "What, 0? Shi Li frowned, and heard Lin Yulanzhen ask, "What's the matter with this 0 sign?" "Buys." Shi Li said in a tone of "You don't even know this." "Buys?" Lin Yulanzhen was still puzzled, but this is the Baiyuzhen competition after all. He was just about to say, "It's not that I don't believe you, it's just that it's too rare to get into the top 12 by drawing a buy," but he heard Shi Li say again, "It's a buy. I also drew number 0 in the last round, so I asked Master Kumlin in the square, and he confirmed it to me personally." Lin Yulanzhen. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.